Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's podcast 171. I'm your host, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, along with Johnny V here in the Milwaukee studios, both of us here in the Milwaukee studios, that is. So we're glad that you guys are here. We're going to have Dynamite Dana Vici, of course, be joining us tonight, as he almost always does. Going to give us some news and updates from around the PDGA schedule for what is actually happening out there. I'll have a few updates also from the Cold Turkey 12 presented by Innova this last weekend. And I think we're going to get maybe a couple other, we're going coast to coast to coast to coast, all over the country and all over the world tonight. I think we're going to have Chris Finn from Dude, and he's actually in Australia. And then out on the West Coast here in the U.S., we're going to keep it stateside. And at some point, I'm pretty sure we're going to have Dion Arlyn joining us. And if he doesn't tonight, well, then the saga will continue.
We'll officially start the meme.
Exactly. So that's what's all in store for you tonight. Hopefully we're going to be all good to go. Solid connections, a little bit of new technology even taking place. Ooh. Johnny V discovered a few different ways we could go about some of the broadcasting efforts and rebroadcasting. Sure. Some nifty new. So you've one of the things that I think is I don't know if advantage is really one of the words, but one of the cool things that we can do, all thanks to your brilliance and your research throughout and your Googles, is being able to broadcast across multiple platforms. We've got a single viewer usually on Twitch, but we've obviously then have the option to broadcast out on Facebook through multiple Facebook live feeds, and that could be our Smashbox feed. That could be to another company's feed or to the PDGA's feed. We've worked with all of those. We can also then broadcast to one or more of the live YouTube feeds. So those are all things that we've done and kind of been able to grow and expand and actually have a further reach throughout the last few years. And now today, you actually found a different mechanism to be able to do that as opposed to what we've been using and paying for the last year or two.
Correct. Previous to tonight, this is our kind of a trial, so we haven't canceled our old subscriptions or anything. We used a Wowza server, which is a big fancy server that I ran on Amazon. I set it all up. I configured it, all this other fun stuff. We paid for it monthly, this and that. Well, there's a service which I'm assuming just uses Wowza as well, but uses it in the background. We don't have to configure it. We don't have to pay for it. We just pay for the service we're using, and it's a substantial cost savings. Not free, which is what I really like, but yeah. So instead of using Wowza, we're testing out with what's called Restream.io. It seems like a pretty great platform. There is a free version of the service, but we need a little bit more than what it offers, so we have to pay. I'm good with that, because if it is as easy as what we just did this morning, we're golden. It'll be really useful and great for us. It gets us back out on Facebook, which is a big deal for me, because I think, and you, I'm sure, we want to be out there. We want to be in as many places as possible. So right now we're streaming to YouTube, to Twitch, and to Facebook. So hello, our Twitch viewer.
How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Really, that's funny, because I think that might be my
Twitch viewers.
I was going to say that might be my two daughters back at home who know more about Twitch than you and I do. And maybe they're back at my house watching this on Twitch.
Do your kids watch Twitch?
No, okay. No, they actually don't. They are all about YouTube Kids.
Do they watch a lot of unboxing videos?
No, not so much. They're way, way more into arts and crafts type stuff. But then ultimately, if there's really a category, it's the DIYs. Yeah, I had to think about that. I used to always say that wrong. It's the DIYs, and they can be all sorts of DIYs. And my daughter, my 9-year-old, along with my 6-year-old, DIYs and life hacks. And
you should turn
it's
them
funny
on
what gets defined sometimes as a life hack.
I think I've talked about the website before, the YouTube channel, Modern Rogue. It
yeah.
might be a little bit beyond them, but I enjoy it. Just this week they had like a professional chef, a guy who works for a butcher, this big butchering thing down in Texas, come in and show exactly how to cook a steak on your stove, and how to do it. You know, some of the best methods, the different types of cuts. It was like a 45-minute thing on all these different types of cuts. Plus, they did sword fighting a few weeks ago. They've done lock picking. They've
Yeah,
done modding.
I definitely should get my 9-year-old and
I think
6-year-old on
hey,
it.
if your kid can start cooking you steaks,
yeah, that's true.
really? Can you argue? So
tonight, well, the most basics timestamp, time and date stamp, of course, just wrapping up with the holiday weekend. So Giving Tuesday is really what I would consider. When did that become a thing?
A few years ago.
In the last 2 to 3 years?
Two, that sounds right, 2 to 3 years.
How long before we have some official naming rights and or sponsorships?
Thursday.
I mean, because you've got
Thursday then?
Yeah.
Thursday's Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
Friday's Black Friday.
Small business
Saturday. Sunday is actually open.
Okay, for now. Somebody will come up with something.
I think it's going to be open just because it's football and church.
Sure, and Cyber Monday and now Giving Tuesday.
Yep.
Even though I did just see, I think 6.59 billion is what I think I saw done on Cyber Monday. Of course, those numbers are only going to climb year after year. But again, maybe that's some after-show fodder and conversation. So that's where we're at. Giving Tuesday, a global day of giving, as we are just coming off of a Thanksgiving celebration and Thanksgiving weekend. So,
and another way to mark today.
Okay.
Bitcoin has hit $10,000 a coin. So in 5 years, you could be hearing this and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe people were investing in Bitcoin," or "I can't believe I didn't get in at $10,000 a coin."
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
fair enough. Yes, there has been. I know we've had very brief conversations about it, but there has been a lot of conversation going on about Bitcoin recently. Of course, the critics, along with the investors and the people that own some of it.
I don't consider. I talked with our friend Todd about this. I don't consider it an investment. It's a gamble.
Yeah, it's a shake of the dice.
It's a shake of the dice. My $200 investment is now worth $2,500, and I'm kind of riding this wave as to when I want to sell, if I want to sell. It's a fun. I should. I mean, if you think about it, I've 10 times my over 10 times my investment. Would be a smart time to get out, but.
Yeah, you greedy SOB.
Pretty much.
Well, again, welcome everyone. I think we can. Are we going to be able to dial up Dana right away? And we'll see if he's ready. It sounds like we may have a few more kinks worked out. Believe it or not, I think we're on a roll here. We may have a few more kinks worked out with Dana, and he's going to join us and give us some updates. Not that he's going all out for us or anything.
Let's
he's in his chill mode.
Let's throw his intro up and we'll get to Dana here.
Let's do it.
Boom goes the dynamite.
Hey, Dana.
Yo.
You're like the Unabomber or something. It's dark. You're hooded.
Cold in here.
Did you not pay your heating bill?
No, I don't know. I might have turned it down today because it was like 60 degrees out. Now
it was gorgeous today.
Damn.
Yeah, plenty of warmth, and that's maybe something else that's interesting. In mid to high 50s in Wisconsin, we're almost December 1st, and near record highs rolling through right now. It's been a very, very warm and mild last couple of days here in the Midwest.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm enjoying it. Unfortunately, not on the disc golf course, but doing yard work. End of year yard work is always nice when you can do it in a t-shirt. So definitely enjoyed a couple hours outside working around the house.
Yeah, I think it was 2 days ago. It was on Sunday that we came home, and I mowed my lawn and edged the grass around the sidewalk. I think it's the latest I've done it ever in the 12 or 13 years I've been at this house. All thinking that when it does snow, I want as much sidewalk as I can see. I don't want any of that grass touch my lawnmower, you know?
Yeah.
Dynamite, you may get called out tonight. You may get called out of the call early. You guys are you got a bag packed, ready to hit the hospital at a moment's notice, right?
Well, I should. We should. Yep. Due date is December 13th again, and so we are. We're at that point where it could happen at any day. We we actually had our anniversary this last week, and so we went to Chicago this weekend, and we're about to leave, and Ashley's like, oh, I gotta have my hospital bag, and didn't have one packed, so she grabbed a onesie, just in case we ended up at the hospital, and thankfully we didn't end up in the hospital, but had a nice night out, and yeah.
All right. Well,
It's
some exciting times over at the Vichy house, anniversary and child birth just around the corner. Very exciting to hear. So this weekend, there was some action taking place in Illinois. Of course, there was my event going on in Wisconsin, and I think there were some things scattered throughout the country. Anything of interest to you?
Yeah. Let's hop into the cold turkey. This was really the 12th cold turkey, Terry? Is this just some sort of...
I just make up random. It would be funny to be like, cold turkey 74. Like
every year change it.
Yeah, just completely. Yeah, it is hard to believe that it's already in its 12th year. I rewind, I guess 2005 obviously would have been about the start of it. It took place down at UW Parkside in Kenosha for the first 2 years, and then I think it was at Dretzka's, a completely temporary course. And I want to say it was like 60-some degrees that day. It was insanely warm for when I hosted it one other time.
And I played a year in Kenosha, and I feel like we had really good weather.
We did. And
I actually got an ace.
You might have. I know Tom McManus, a Smashy and a huge helper, PDJ 1276 out of Gurney. He gives me a hard time because he says somehow every single year you seem to luck out with the most gorgeous weather for a late November event. And I think I said it the other day. I think about 11 out of 12 years it's been above average. So thanks global warming, I think, is who I can thank there. But it's ridiculous just how nice it has been. And this weekend in the 40s, mid to high 40s, no snow, no frigid temps, light winds, if any. It was gorgeous. And we got to see two new pin placements.
Nice weather was Sean Butler, local to the course, to Silver Lake. Takes good care of it out there, along with some other people you can shout out. But Sean Butler came out and did a little wire-to-wire dance in the open side, 1x4 throws over Steven Jacobs and Tao Pao Lee, who finished at 2 under par, respectively. On the women's side, we had 4 women playing. Barrett White, who's known all over the disc golf world, especially in Illinois and Wisconsin. Come up to Wisconsin, she had a couple 900+ rated rounds and got herself a little victory, but she had to work for it. After the first round, she was only up 1 throw over Casey Pennington, who's 873 rated from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Casey shot a pretty good round at 901. She is 873 rated right now. Round 2, unfortunately for Casey, kind of brought her back down to earth with a round a little bit lower than her rating. But Barrett shot another good one and got herself a victory. Young gentleman in the Masters division, Scott McHale. Actually, I'm not sure if he's young or not, but
he's technically going to be grandmaster age as of next year, he said.
Wow, well, he put a whooping on your boy Chad.
Cameraman Chad?
Stepped out from behind the camera and got himself on the lead card there in the Masters division. Of course, we're talking about Chad, Mr. Catch Cam on SmashBoxx, Chad Inman, finished in second. And then we'll give the rest of the divisional winners a shout out just because it's Terry's tournament. Kyle Opfer shot really well in the advanced division, took down the win. Advanced women, Michelle Hansel won that one. Advanced Masters, Darren Chanksky. And Grandmasters, coming up from Chi-Town, Jerome Harvey took the victory over Tom McManus, PDJ 1276. So nice shooting to all the winners. And that was just Saturday. You ran Sunday too?
Yeah, so a few years ago, I decided that this event has grown enough that we're going to do a split day format. And even if it's not quite as many people over the 2 days, I think things move a little bit more smoothly and more comfortably. And so we had, 51 ish or 50 some on Saturday, and then 51. And then we actually had 72, which was the proposed cap. We had 72 on Sunday. And, just a great showing, a great turnout, lots of good golfers, and turned out to be pretty awesome. So one of the cool things that we saw was there's a new pin placement. Some people have played there and are familiar a little bit with it, but there's a new pin placement on 2 that I talked to the Parks Department about a few years ago. They got that installed. Sean Butler, who's he is really the course pro and one of the main maintenance guys there to help things out. He's like, really? We're gonna play that? I'm like, yeah, it's been there for a week. Why not? Who cares? Why not? It's cleared out. It's in a good position, and it makes the hole significantly tougher.
Two was
straight out.
It was a straight out on the top, kind of on the top of the hill, about 250 feet,
if even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's more like probably closer to 400-ish.
Jeez.
And it goes into the woods and up at like the 10 o'clock position into the whole carved out area into the woods.
I don't know if I like that.
That was. I like the sound of it. How does it play? Does it play? Is it a tweener, Terry? Is it twoable?
Somebody did throw one in from the mouth, I guess, but I think it could be considered probably a tweener. I think you're going to see more 4s than 3s. You're not going to see too many 2s on it.
Yeah. I like how that, I like how holes play into the open, from the open and then into the woods and finish like that. I think that's a fun hole design. I'll be interested to check that out. Hopefully sooner than later, maybe in the spring, get up there again for Skyline Classic and get some redemption. But wow, that sounds cool. But that's an underutilized little piece of the property there. So
yeah, and then there's a few other changes that are going to continue to grow and evolve out there. And a lot of people, I think, are going to continue to like that course. And then you just drive 3 miles down the road, and there's a true par 62 course that is still been eating people for lunch. I think the best score is still 52 or 54, Sean Butler said, when in singles. So that definitely tells you something about how challenging that course is just down the road. So look for those to come more into play. In fact, there's going to be a free Discontinuum club event taking place down the road on Saturday. So check out the Discontinuum Club. Tom McManus is going to be in control of that, but they're going to play over at that new Silver Lake course, the Silver Fox course. So.
Cool. Well, they're also. Did you guys want to talk about the Australian Championships with Chris?
Well, I mean, do you have anything prior that we should be lobbing up or taking notes on for when we do have him, or is there something you want to chime in with?
No, I just didn't want to blow it. But
no, if you want to share something, we've got some other stuff I think we're going to catch up with him on. So if there's something that you saw, feel free.
Yeah. So the 2017 Australia Disc Golf Championships were this last weekend in Wanneroo. And that's in Western Australia. 92 total players at this B-tier event. And winning it in a playoff, Jackson Sullivan, who is from New Zealand, won it over a fellow New Zealander, Simon Feasey. We see Simon do quite a bit of traveling. I think I first met him maybe in Japan at the last Japan Open, but you see Simon hit up some of the bigger European events and then even come over to the States for Worlds or maybe a random other big event. But they were at 17 under when it was all said and done, 7th rows ahead of Chris Finn, our next guest. And it didn't take long for Jackson to get the win over Simon. Simon threw out of bounds on the first hole, and Jackson was able to seal up the win right there. And I'll give some shout outs. Advanced Darren Stace Smith got the win in advanced women. There was no pro women field, but there was a 6 person advanced women field. Christina Wilson won that. So Congratulations to them and the rest of the divisional winners. All the way back here stateside, the annual Belgian Turkey, which is in Chattanooga, Tennessee every year. It's a huge event. This year, 179 players. I think they obviously have multiple courses going, maybe 20-something hole courses going on the same property, but had some big hitters show up. Had James Cole, Michael Johansson showed up, Logan Bowers, Joey Lutz, who we haven't seen a whole lot on tour this year, Chris Dickerson, Matt Dollar made his way up from Georgia and barely cashed. But winning it, Chris Dickerson shot some really good golf. He went 1042, 1061 to win by 5 throws over Joey Lutz. And I clicked on Joey's name. I haven't seen a whole lot of Joey this year. We're used to seeing him at some of the bigger events across the country, but it really looks like he did not leave that little Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina region and mostly played local events. He cashed in every single event, 17 events. About half of them, he got second place. Like literally, he got second place in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 events, second place. Won a couple. He's got another second place. Chris Dickerson this weekend. Most likely, I bet if I clicked on a bunch of those second places, we'd see Chris Dickerson right in front of him. That's just the kind of year that Chris has had. Chris is pushing with this win. He's over 25,001 on the year, 37 tournaments, and that's not even including the 3 or 4 that are still on, whatever, you know what I'm looking for. But anyways, that's going to push him over 40 tournaments on the year. The most recent PDGA World Rankings came out. Chris found himself inside the top 10. Just all in all, great year, and look to see that continue moving forward for Chris.
So Dana, first of all, we want to thank Harold Williams, who made a super chat for $5 towards the Dana Lighting Fund. Seeing how it looks like you're in a deep, dark section of the house.
Yeah, we got the
Christmas trees up, so that looks good. So what I wanted to follow that up with, you just mentioned, that's way better. There you go. So you just mentioned.
You guys really want to see this?
Yeah, that's what people are talking about.
People are talking about it.
Where's your mustache? And
November's not over, but the mustache and beard are.
Yeah. Do you not care about men's health?
I did it for DG Mike in the event, but yeah, I had I had the mustache for 3 weeks or so, and kind of just woke up and said, today's the day. I'm cutting it, and I decided to get a haircut yesterday for no particular reason other than I felt like it. So here we are.
Did the school at any point say, yeah, you're not allowed to substitute teach with that mustache? Please go home and shave. Doesn't fit the dress code. So
actually they missed the mustache. So
all right. So one thing that you just mentioned a moment ago that I definitely want your input on is world rankings were released. It shows in just the most unbelievable fashion. It shows Paul McBeth tied with Ricky Wysocki. They play all of these events, of which Dion Arlyn had sent a spreadsheet earlier in the year. All of these events, head-to-head, at the same tournament, not at the same tournament. And it all shakes out and they're within a few points of Player of the Year, and it shakes out somehow, some way. They are tied for first place in the world rankings. And then, what I'm really going to get to is the comment that came along with a post about that by one Mr. McBeth. I was going to go quote it just so that I can say it verbatim. He had made a post. This was just 2 or 3 days ago. I want to see if I can find it here. Here it is. He posted, I think, to both Instagram and ultimately to his wall. And he posts the world rankings of him tied with Ricky. It showed that his previous rank was 3rd. His now current world rank is, tied for 1st. Ricky's previous rank was 1. Now, of course, tied for 1st. And Paul on Instagram puts, I quote, "I'm not playing around. Climbed to a tie for number 1 with an off year," end quote. And then he says, let's get to work.
Now, DGN, Disc Golf Nerd, mentions it on there, and I agree with it. I don't like the tie. I think it's kind of a cop-out. I understand they've got a formula, and apparently there's got to be a tiebreaker. Whether you should not have 2 number 1s in the world. 2 number 1 world rankings.
Chuck Kennedy.
All right, just give him about 3 minutes, and he'll show up on a message board, on our message board.
I just think that it has to come down to some sort of tiebreaker. Personally, I'd probably give it to Ricky with the season Ricky had. I understand there's a big fat stinking formula, but give me a break. There's not 2 numbers. You want to have 2 number 2s? I'm okay with that.
I mean, numbers are numbers. So when they shook out,
I agree.
That's how they shook out.
I agree. I just
Paul,
don't.
Of course, still holds a higher rating.
There's something gross about it. There's something not right. When who's the best? Who's the number 1 player in the world? Paul, or Ricky, or Paul, or Ricky. Like,
I mean, you have that argument anyway, don't you? You almost say one, and you almost always include the other anyway, because we talk about the 2 of them being on another level.
Completely, but there's no tie in a Super Bowl. There's no.
I know those are more definitive, specific. I mean, you could tie for. I'm guessing you could tie for the what is there still a Nextel Cup or a Sprint Cup or one of those, or a Ryder Cup? Not a Ryder Cup, the FedEx Cup. I bet you could tie. I bet you mathematically those things could end in a tie. I mean, this is.
Someone goes home with the cup.
No. I'm saying at an event someone does.
Sure.
But I'm saying when you're talking about just an algorithm and a series of numbers and points, it's very conceivable that I think the chances are tiny, but it's conceivable that it could end in a tie. Now, that's where I think Player of the Year, for instance, shouldn't end in a tie.
Why not? You can both be Player of the Year.
I could see how the points shake out, but then I think, again, it has to be dialed down or drilled down to some then tiebreaker.
I agree.
Whatever that is.
I agree. Just like world rankings should. There should not be a tie for your world ranking.
Okay.
Not for first place. I just quickly looked up world rankings and ties. Like tennis says, the most total points from Grand Slams, ATP World Tours, Masters, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, they go down deeper.
Of course,
when you have the same amount of points.
There's tiebreakers.
Find a way to tiebreak. Whether it's the number of players that you beat at combined events or...
would you say this is every time the rankings come out? Or are you just concerned because it's the end of the year rankings? So if this came out in May, you would say, hey, break that tie.
Yes, every time. In fact, I would even go as far as to say maybe you should not have ties for the top 10. I would have no problem with that, but definitely not number 1. Dana?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I know it's all about the algorithm and the majors and then tees and the weighted events and all that, but right now looking at it, Paul Macbeth, 24, he'll have 25 with his last A tier that's not on his ratings yet, but 24 events, over 68,000 won. Ricky, 27 events, and looks like he has all his events on there. He's at 79,000.
How many wins?
He's won over $10,000 more money, even after Paul's last event will go on. He world champion. If you look at Ricky's finish after, so he had that little lull after winning the world championship, which is pretty normal. Didn't fare too well at the European Open, Ledgestone Open, Pittsburgh. But then from there, he won Vibram, 3rd at Green Mountain, 2nd USDGC first, Hall of Fame. He got second in the NT Series points, which wasn't a tournament, but then tour. He won the Pro Tour Championship. He won Buffalo Run. He was just a phenomenal year. And then, as Paul said, I mean, he said it. Paul said it himself. He had an off year, and it's hard to tell looking at his stats because I mean, he only found himself outside of third place twice, I believe, with a fourth place at Nantucket, which, you know, the one-day B tier. And then also at his final event, I think he finished at the Fall Colors, I believe, fourth place as well. No, he did finish in third place. So he won one event outside. Gosh, is that really an off year? But
well, and I think anytime he doesn't win Worlds, it's an off year for him.
Yeah, no Worlds, no USDGC for him. That's an off year. But Paul came out pretty hot, you know, at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't win Aussie Open, you know. Would have been nice for him to get that major right off the bat, but then he went first, second at Gentlemen's Club, Memorial won, Throw Down the Mountain won, Nick Hyde won, second at Texas State's, GBO won, second at Kono Pitch Day, first at Masters Cup, second at Beaver State Fling, second at such a great stretch, such a great year.
Exactly.
And there's no denying that if you ask somebody who's the best player in the world, that you're going to get a 50-50 coin flip on those guys right now. But
yeah, I feel like
their rankings.
If Paul had a few more, you know, another A tier in there that would have put him over on the points, I feel like it would have felt wrong to me. It feels right to have Ricky at number one, but and it would have made most sense to me, to many others, just to have Paul at second.
Yeah, you're right. A gut check says that right now Ricky should be ranked higher than Paul, just based on Worlds and the finishes. I get that, and I also get like statistics. We have recency bias. Ricky did so well at the end of the season. Paul did so well at the beginning of the season that it just kind of feels like, oh yeah, that's the way it is. But if you're taking account the total year, I can understand how close it can be. But find a way to break that tie. Do not give me two number ones.
Well, to me, if it's just math, then it is. I can understand how it got there. I think this may open some eyes to say, okay, if after all of this tabulating, all of these algorithms, all of these points, all of this finagling, it could be tied, then yes, then there needs to, in fact, be some form of tiebreaker to go a step further. And that might be something that comes to light now, because here we have a tie for number one. I think when there's a tie for third or a tie for ninth, everyone's kind of like, oh, yeah, no big deal, and you're just excited to be in that tie, you know, or to be in the top 10. But when you're talking about the number one player, I can understand your frustration. Will it change? Maybe, maybe not. I have a hard time. I think we could, as the board is lighting up right now, you could go on and on and on and argue about who you think is better by whatever measures you want to use. How many events, and one of the ones that I think is maybe most skewed, or maybe not, how many events did you say they each played, Dana? Do you remember what you just said?
It was 27 for Ricky, and I think it'll end up being 25 for Paul.
Sure. You know, and
that includes the Pro Tour or the NT Series first, second. So what, you know,
exactly. I mean, and it's funny. Could you you know, someone throw out a wash and say, well, someone won the Pro Tour Series points and someone won the National Tour Series points. Those two flip flop for those two gentlemen. Is one any more weighted than the other? That's another debate. What kind of money was attached to those? Again, all of those things I think could factor in. So it's a great discussion. Here's what I really brought it up for, though, believe it or not. What about the tone? What about the context or tone of Paul's exact words? Is there anything that could be misconstrued, positive or negative, by exactly what he posted? When you read it verbatim, when you read it word for word, is that Is that cocky?
Yes. That's Paul doing Paul things. That's Paul asserting himself. Paul likes to throw, whether he admits it or not, he likes to throw little jabs out, not at Ricky particularly,
Sure.
but at the field. He likes to make it more visible as to what he's doing and his thought process than a lot of other players. You know, he's the type of guy that's going to post that 5 a.m. picture of him at the gym in a puddle of sweat. It's, you know, working hard, getting ready for the off season. Wait till you see what I do on season. Something crazy like that. That's what Paul does. And I think it's psychological, and I think he knows it, and I've got no problems with it.
Yeah. I actually wanted to talk about Paul's social media post too. He's been tagging Adidas. He made a post, kind of a cryptic post the other day, him like working out, and it said, "What was it? Pay me at Adidas."
Yeah.
And then a couple other, I think, in that post that we're talking about now, where he says I had the off year. I believe he tagged Adidas in that as well. So we have to assume he's in negotiations, or was in negotiations with Adidas.
That's a great question, and a lot of you, we've learned through Adidas Outdoors that was specifically the channel in which he was connected with, which is separate from, we'll say, the mothership that's Adidas. I mean, obviously part of it, but yet separate. And Adidas Outdoors. And Paul, I think, has been relatively vocal throughout the years that merchandise is one thing, but he's not, when he comes to the table and is looking for negotiations and sponsorships, he's not like all of us schmucks that are like, oh yeah, we'll take a free pair of socks. That'd be awesome. We love you. You're our favorite new sponsor. What's that?
Shade Rays.
Yeah. So whatever it might be, and by all means, we're all very grateful for any sponsorships we do get. But when we're talking about us regular Joes here, we're usually talking about some kind of merch and or discount. Paul's, as you said, been vocal. He wants cash. Cash is king. I think we all know that. And really, Paul only needs so many pairs of shoes and or pairs of warm up gear or raincoats. Yeah, that is interesting. We'll see, and hopefully, obviously, we'll get some updates from Paul, whether it's directly for us or if stuff that he's posting. But he's been very adamant throughout the years of taking it to the next level and trying to break that barrier of getting out of merchandise, getting serious about cash sponsorship, and getting other worldwide brands to recognize and support what we do. Otherwise, he may feel like he can move on, because I know he knows he's valuable as a marketing resource and as a tool and as a channel and outlet. And if they don't want to pay him, then he's not going to stick around just so he can say he's associated with someone if they're not coming to the table with what he wants.
Sure.
So we'll see. Dana,
yeah, we should.
Who's going to pay you, Dana?
Man.
Ashley?
SmashBoxx, you guys got any money for me?
We do make contributions to you for helping us out. Thanks to our Patreon supporters. We spread the love. We get a little love, and then we spread it among our some of our contributors like yourself. But you've got a second mouth or fourth mouth at that table to feed, and man, I would not be counting on us.
The first couple months are free.
I'm just count on Ashley. Keep her hydrated.
We can say that because she's in the other room. So
we're not talking about you.
Not at all.
So
yeah, hopefully can have Paul on the show. I know he's he likes to come on the show and hang out. So maybe we can or you guys can get him on here in the next month or two, at least once before the season gets going again. Probably season will be a little bit more normal with no Aussie Open. So probably players starting to play again somewhere towards the end of February, get ready for the Memorial, or get ready actually for the Las Vegas Challenge and Memorial. So not quite the early season start that we saw this year in 2017.
Yeah, that was one of the conversation pieces, and I think that's gonna also could be a conversation piece for where I'm going in 2 weeks to the South Florida Open. I know they really have this vision of being kind of a final event, a final large A tier event of the year. Let me clarify that. A final large A tier event of the year, and I love that idea. The question is the practicality there? Is it real that some of these golfers who really do want to consider off time, yeah, this might be a great event with some solid money, which I think I'm excited about all of it. Is it enough to entice them? It's Florida, it's December, solid payout. Sounds like great courses, and they're going to treat everyone well. But I think there's a few hurdles there that they may or may not be able to get over, and I know they're going to try really hard to do so. And similarly, I rewind a few years ago, we've talked about the Mango Classic, who wanted had this insane payout, but it was always the week after USDGC. And he wasn't getting the draw and the turnout that he wanted to because so many people were mentally exhausted. Well, now we're
beyond that.
Now we see, the national tour wraps up and the pro tour wraps up and all of that. But when, if ever, do some of these players get their break? And who's going to actually partake in the breaks? That's the question.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Hey, you know what?
What?
You know who didn't tie? Bradley Williams this last weekend.
What?
I don't know if anybody caught this, but if you're a junkie like me and you look at all the results, little C tier in Texas on Sunday, I believe. 52 players, 7-person open field, nothing huge. Bradley went 1080, 1057
Wow.
to win by 14 throws. So
I would feel so dejected in a 7-person field. Those are usually your smaller local events. Watching some guy who you probably know, you're probably local, Bradley, walk away with a 1080 round. I would just be like, what do I got to do in a 7-person field?
Yeah, well.
I mean, and good for him, because if it was someone, I would probably be cheering for them at that point when you're watching someone have a round like that. But it's still heartbreaking.
Yeah, I had Kyle Crabtree put a 1090 or 1090 something right in my eye one year when I was at an A tier, and it's out in Washington. That was awesome to watch. So I mean, at that point, you're watching just an insanely awesome disc golf, and Brad, maybe he's he didn't win last weekend at VPO, but he definitely had it going this last weekend. So I just wanted to throw that one out there for the Bradley Williams fans or haters or whatever, or disc golf fans. That's some really good disc golf, and seems like Brad is working his way back to his old playing self.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to come out and be a contender at every single event that he's in next year. I mean, clearly he came right off suspension, immediately into a win out there in Connecticut, and then has just continued to perform well.
I think he's going to be a top 5 player next year.
Oh, I don't think there's a doubt.
Well, I mean, think about who's up there: Paul and Ricky, Sexton,
top 5.
And then you've got usually a Simon, if he, I know there's talks about him taking a break next year or whatever, but
Conrad, Dickerson.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Bradley is going to surpass a bunch of those guys and knock them down one. I think Bradley next year, when you look at, if he does a full-time touring, we'll say full-time, if he hits, 20 of the major events next year, you take those, I bet you he's going to average in the top 5. He's just that good.
I concur. I won't disagree with you on that one. All right, Dynamite. Is there anything you'd like to add before? We're going to talk a little later in the show. You'll be sleeping, but we're going to talk a little bit about MVP, their new title sponsorship over at the Maple Hill Open. That's definitely something that's big in the news.
MVP Open at Maple Hill.
Is that what it's called?
I believe it's the MVP Open. Yeah.
Okay.
You got some time to figure it out.
I'll get it figured out one way or another. But yeah, MVP Open. I'm gonna have to get really used to saying that. At Maple Hill, so that should be really exciting to see how that unfolds. Obviously, big news. We We originally had talked a little bit with Steve Dodge. You thought he'd come on and give us a few details and specifics, but long and short of it is that they're the new title sponsor, and we'll get into that a little later. But super exciting, and we're gonna have Chris Finn. He's on deck. Anything you need to say to Chris as we transition over to him?
Hey, Chris, hope you enjoy that nice weather in Australia. And before I go, I do have a big hug that I want to give out. Lance Brown.
Okay.
I think he's a former winner of the big hug, but saw poor Lance. He's one of my favorite people to follow on social media, especially during disc golf tournaments, because he's always locking his keys in the car or
going OB on the first hole,
showing up late to the first hole, showing up late to the tournament, or bogeying the first hole, or throwing in the water at Maple Hill and then saying, "I knew I was going to do it." It just funny stuff. But this weekend he had a tough weekend. He played a couple events. It didn't cash it either, and he made a social media post about being disappointed or failing or something. So maybe this big hug will give him the bump he needs to go cash in every single Spikeiser tournament that he plays this winter. I'm sure there's probably 30 of them for him to play in, and I'm sure that Lance and his 999 rating will get back up there and above the cash line. So big hug, Lance. Terry, Johnny, thanks for having me. Smashies. Smell you later.
All right. Have a good night, Dana Mike.
Thanks, Dana.
I thought Dana was going to go with the big hug for none other than our wonderful and amazing Zotron. Happy birthday, Zoe.
Happy birthday.
Celebrating a birthday today. So, and you got that from Dana, whatever that was. All right. So Dynamite Dana Vici, thank you for joining us. Thanks for the insights. I'm real quickly before we get to Chris, and we can pretty much wrap up cold turkey stuff. I have a quick list of a few people and amazing sponsors and supporters. The Cold Turkey 12, as we said, took place this weekend, and they got a great players pack thanks to Innova Champion Disc, who was the presenting sponsor. But some of these people are smashies, which makes them even that much more awesome that they're supporting the event and they support Smashbox. Miles over at Paragon, Dan Harbeck, who's on the board, Barrett White, Tegan Meyer, Todd Thomas, Sam Martinson. Thank you, Sam, for everything, buddy. All of your support. Ryan Pilcher, thank you, who's also out there. Sean Butler, Tom McManus, Colin Huff, Jesse Dixon, Nick Murphy, and Ryan Miller. So thank you to all of those people, and then some. If you had any help or any part of helping me count a scorecard or doing anything, I appreciate it. Also, a shout out to Matt Parker, who helped a little bit with a tweak on the original design for the logo, which I think turned out kind of clever. So
he's more than just stats. Matt the stat.
Matt the stat. And tonight, a little teaser. I've got a cold turkey Shimmer Star Thunderbird or a dyed Champ Mamba. Our Patreon supporters will have a chance at one of two of those tonight. So we'll be drawing that a little later on in the show. So thank you. Again, thanks to Innova Champion for being our presenting sponsor of the cold turkey this year. I think we're ready. Get down under with our...
Do I need to flip his screen because he's on the other side of the...
Oh, good call.
Of the world?
I'm not sure.
Well, that's true. No, you don't have to. The world's flat. We're flat earthers here on Smashbox.
Yeah, that makes it easy.
All right, Chris, go ahead and send us your video, and I think we'll be set.
As always, if you guys want to follow along, please do so on the live YouTube chat. I think there's going to be a lot of action, again, taking place on Facebook. We kind of check in on there, but if you really want to convey any kind of message or let us know what's going on, the live YouTube chat is the best way to do that. I can't keep track. Or how's our Twitch viewer? do we still have one
were
out
up to 5 Twitch viewers at one point, and now we're back down to 3.
All right.
So
well, good.
Shout
Thanks.
out to all our Twitch viewers. We love you.
All right. We're going to get Chris on the line here. He just has to click on his little camera button so that we can see him.
There we go. Hey, Chris.
And I think we can welcome him to the show. Chris Finn of Dude. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Good, buddy. How are you?
We're good. Let's start out with the basics. Where are you at?
I am currently sitting in Perth, Western Australia, in the Dude HQ.
All right. So when did you? We see your trailer, we see the big truck, all of your stuff. But when did you transition from the U.S. back to Australia?
Yeah, I think I've been about 2.5 weeks back here, mate. It's yeah, just got away just as it was getting cold.
So what are the temperatures and climate like there right now?
Um, I think we're averaging around 85 degrees in your measurement system, and blue sunny skies, and yeah, shorts and t-shirts and beach weather.
All right. So now Dana gave us a little insight. What went down this weekend? You were playing some golf. Is that what we heard? Give us your
Yes,
version
mate.
of the story.
We had the Australian Championships this weekend, and yeah, obviously the Kiwi boys came over, Jackson Sullivan and Simon Feasy. They came over here with a good team of people from New Zealand. Good battle, nice conditions. They played very well. Unfortunately, my second round, I've had a bit of a niggling elbow pain all year, and I forgot to take some painkillers. And after about the third hole into the second round, basically couldn't release the disc, getting a bit of tingling through the fingers, and dropped about 8 strokes on that round. And even though halfway through the third round I'd kind of picked up about 4 or 5 back, just couldn't climb the ladder. So I took the third spot happily behind those two amazing, gents, very good players and good blokes. So it's always nice to just have the good camaraderie. Always nice to have a win too, but not unhappy losing to one of those guys. And great to see Jackson come up. He's a great player.
All right. So I was trying to do a little geography the other day, which is scary to look at that flat Earth that we have. But
Is that on the world or the map of America, mate?
Yeah,
Most of the US I see is a map of the US, and people are like, "Hey, this is the map of the world." I'm like, "Yes, your world. You are right."
But what is that? I was going to say commute. What is that travel like from New Zealand over to for Australia over to the event? I mean, there's some water between you, right?
Yes, mate. They generally, they'll jump in a boat and travel for 3 days. No, only joking. It's not too bad from Auckland, which is capital. It's probably about a 6-hour flight. So, yeah, it's kind of equivalent to going from New York across to London or something. It's about that.
Okay. And how many total people came over from New Zealand, roughly? Was it quite a few?
Yeah, I think there was about 6 or 7 that came over.
Okay. And what is a flight like that run? I know I know you're not a travel agent. I'm just really curious. Like, what's a flight like that cost?
Look, I think an early bird special in US dollars, you might get away with about $500.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty reasonable. I mean, you could
Yeah.
easily pay $500 to go from California out to New York. So, okay, interesting. Yep. So, where are we in terms of planning? I mean, last year, was it already last year? Yeah, 2016. Was it 2016?
2017.
2017. Holy cow! Yeah, I'm losing track of my years. How we've talked throughout the last few episodes, of course, about the World Tour, and then the World Tour has trimmed down events, and now ultimately the World Tour is on a little bit of a break or hiatus, and they're going to kind of regroup. And I know you've been very involved with supporting the World Tour in the early goings here, and then obviously the Australian Open taking place. Where does Australia fit into we'll say the global disc golf scene? I mean, I know you were just talking about your event this weekend, but in terms of global disc golf scene, the Macbeths and the Barsbys and the Dosses coming to play there, what does that mean for our traveling competitors? And
Yep.
when do you see the next event that's going to do that? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we, part of the plan for the Aussie Open from the start for me was to bring, the international players down this end of the hemisphere, the world. It's a long way to go, but it was to expose the scene here to some of those people instead of just seeing them on on the TV, the live feeds, or the playback stuff on YouTube, was to actually get those guys down here to, really get the local players amped about, what disc golf is all about. And, during a lot of these events, we've run kind of side clinics and had the chance for the players to mingle with the pro players. And, obviously for the touring pros, we've tried to make sure that, they could get a trip down here, which didn't leave them completely out of pocket, kind of like a paid holiday if they played well. Obviously you never get it right the first time or even the second time, but, it's always been a good event to help grow the sport. And when we came up with the idea, it was about having an event every 2 years, similar to Japan Open, and putting it on the opposite calendar year to give the international disc golf scene some growth outside of the US and Europe.
So 2019 is something that is in the works for you guys.
Yep. So 2019 would be the year that we would be running an event. There may be some advancements into what happens with the 2019 version. It will be hopefully something we can talk about in the next couple of months, and it'll be similar to what we've done in the past. Hopefully we can make something a little bit more exciting and get a few more people traveling.
Very cool. I know it was such an interesting leap to see that, not only the World Tour coming into its own, but then also, the PDGA Major being attached to it, and then finding out what players, as you said, could afford to go there, and could it be practical and feasible to bring these players there, and what did that mean for them, and just their outlook on it. And I think that needs to be talked about for all of our international travel. Are you going there because you're going to come home with a bunch of money in your pocket, or are you going there hoping to play well but then have a really cool experience and a cultural experience? And what's all tied to that? Because as we know, with the money that's in disc golf, going there and winning, you're still not going to come home rich when you travel internationally. There's just a lot of expenses to it.
Yeah, I think it's I guess a lot of these guys are getting a taste of what it means to go the opposite way for any players that are looking to enjoy what disc golf is about from, let's say, Australia or New Zealand or Thailand or any of these other countries that aren't in America or in Europe. These guys want to experience it. There's a couple of good gents from the east coast of Australia that took off over to the US for a month around USDGC time. And, it's a big expense. It's a long trip, and those guys aren't just going to the US to win an event. They're going for the experience. They're going to see what disc golf is like around the world, and what the community's like, and the people. It'd be nice to play well and get some money in your pocket, but it's not all about the money, although the money is definitely helpful.
So
yeah.
Now, for those who don't know, and maybe I did a poor introduction, you are the CEO, the head, the main guy, the head honcho, the man in charge of Dude. Tell us about how that came about, and what you've learned in these last couple of years.
Most people know him from the commercials. Everyone sees the commercials in the Pro Tour. You throw, I think you are in the Dude pants. Nice slow-mo of you, I think. Is that right?
Yes, mate. That was probably in late 2014, early 2015, and obviously we had a two-person team, and one of the local guys did a little bit of filming, and we put on the products. We had 11 products at that point in time, and made our own commercial. And obviously we've advanced a little bit since then. But I probably met 3,000 or 4,000 people in 2016 in the US, and another 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 traveling around again this year. So I definitely have had a chance to meet a number of folks on the ground, and Do Clothing came about, just because I had a desire to create something which hopefully could cross disc golf into mainstream, maybe a little bit quicker than the disc golf frisbee and the game itself. And it was just with a similar outlook to how surfing and skating had done it, in the past 30 or 40 years, by creating a lifestyle brand. And then obviously I grabbed the opportunity to develop products that actually are specifically designed for the sport, to try and help people either play better or just have a more enjoyable experience. The rain jackets, you can keep your discs in your pocket, things like that, so that they don't get wet, so you're ready to throw. Pants that you can wear, hot or cold conditions, that you can stretch and do yoga if that's your side pleasure. And that's kind of what it's about. And behind that, it's all about growing the sport, getting mainstream attention onto the brand, and then hopefully onto the sport. And, yeah.
Now, so really on your resume you just put international model is what I think you should have on there, right? Yeah. I'm sure you've learned a lot. You talked about it. You said you had 11 products when you started. You're continuously growing and expanding and learning, and I'm sure you've been presented with a few challenges. And there was even a pretty significant setback or challenge this year that maybe wasn't entirely public.
Yeah, obviously, if you were starting a business, there's 4 key quadrants, and we were basically heading into the worst one, which was starting a new business with no experience in a new sport. Most of my other companies have been around stuff that I know how to do, and clothing wasn't one of them, but I managed to meet up with some people that have been doing it for 30 years and knew how to do it. But yeah, obviously the normal challenges of starting a business revolve around being financial and actually making a living, or at least covering your costs and not going broke at the same time. We definitely had a couple of challenges. The biggest setback for us, we didn't go public. It happened at the start of this year. We had a couple of deliveries of our products which were in process for the season, and they were delivered into California, and we had an international shipping agent which brought them in, and then a truck company.
We lost Chris in the middle
Somebody
of the story.
stole his signal.
We're going to call him back, hopefully, here. Just need to send us your video again, Chris. You kind of disconnected for a second there.
I guess he didn't want to.
There you go. You're back. So you were saying that that the shipment came into California, and then something happened from there?
Yep. So basically, the trucking company that was supposedly taking the stock from the shipping agent, they took delivery, and then their warehouse actually got broken into, and pretty much 70% of the stock that we'd had earmarked for the start of the season was stolen. We're talking about $100,000 worth of gear. So, critical problem for us. It's not just the financial burden, which is substantial, but there's actually the time that it takes to manufacture this gear. Months to go from when you say yes to place an order to when you deliver the stock. So you can imagine that stock had already been at the end of that process, and so we're left in a pretty precarious position where we didn't have the stock that we wanted to have for the season, and B, obviously a massive chunk of cash required to pay for it again. We just weren't in a position to do that. And so we held out. We didn't go public all year. We've been working in the background to just see if anything turned up. Obviously being a small company, you can tend to notice when $100,000 worth of gear starts to be on the market and it's not coming from you. But it just didn't happen. So we left it for the season and just thought we'll wait until the end of the year and see if it turns up or see if there's anyone that finds out about gear that's being sold. But it didn't happen. So, we obviously, reached out to you, Terry, and, this is probably the first time we're letting people know. And part of the issue is, you've got a lot of people that are asking you for some of your most popular products, and unfortunately, you're sold out. When you haven't actually sold out, you've basically lost the stuff. So, especially in the last weekend, we had, I don't know, maybe 200 or 300 messages saying, hey, we want this, we want that, for the Black Friday sales. And we're like, yeah, really sorry, it's finally due to arrive in about 2 weeks. But that's because, we had to work ourselves back into a position at the start of the season where we had the money to actually purchase that stock again and then put it into the manufacturing process. And then finally, in about 2 weeks' time, it gets delivered, about 8 months behind.
I can't even imagine. $100,000, that's a lot of money. Was there any sort of insurance on that at all from the warehouse, or?
Absolutely. So basically, because it's in transit, it's called marine transit insurance, and our shipping agent had insurance. But basically, what they cover you for is the cost minus any import duties, minus all the shipping costs, minus the 6 months that it took you to develop it.
Yep.
Minus the fabrics. So they don't look at all those other things that had to be purchased to make that stuff happen. Zippers, buttons, all of those things are not covered.
Wow.
That's.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the things that I guess we can get out there is if anybody knows anything, or the odds are so slim, but if you see anybody selling, quantities of dude clothing, reach out to Chris, reach out to Terry. He can get you in touch with Chris or whatever. We want to make sure that if anything can happen, it will. But obviously, the longer ago it gets, the harder it is to.
Yeah, and I would just have to think you have worked so hard to build this brand and this lifestyle brand that is still right now very synonymous with disc golf. So it's interesting that if this ever does appear or show up or surface, like those aren't generic just widgets that any Walmart or any store or any Target or anyone's going to be selling at a gas station or at a clothing store. I mean, your clothing is so specific as of right now, in that it's and so distinguishable that one's got to wonder, so whoever stole it, did they know what they were stealing, or B, now that they do know what maybe they have, do they realize it's going to be impossible for them to move it, or is there some other entire market where they're going to be able to take all of that clothing, offload it to someone that has nothing to do with disc golf, and still be able to make plenty of money on it? I guess I'm sure a million things have gone through your head already.
Oh, mate. Yes, there was definitely, there was a lot of investigation, thoughts, how do we find it, where do we look, and how they're going to move it. But, on real terms, it's not a significant amount of products. When you look at the real world, and, Adidas or Nike are importing containers and containers of gear on a daily basis, probably. It doesn't even enter as a blip on the radar for real term things. But at the end of the day, it happened. We managed it out for most of the season. We found other ways to try and supplement income through the year, and we still managed to support everyone that we said that we were going to support, and got behind events, did things that we could do. And we rode out the year, and obviously now back in Australia, regrouping, ready for next season, and hopefully the growth that we've had over the last year, even with that interruption, it's got the good signs that we're obviously doing the right thing, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, I give you a lot of credit for having such positivity, such an outlook, and trying to forge forward. And and continuing, like you said, to support events. We still saw you at a lot of places. Saw the trailer and the truck, the family, and just to know that that was something that was going on behind the scenes for the entire disc golf community who didn't know that, but you guys were pushing forward through that throughout this entire season just says a lot about your heart and your commitment and you know where you are mentally, which we very much commend you for. What are some of the plans moving forward? You know, aside from that setback, as you said, or that instance, but just in general, what are we going to see from you guys? You know, as early as 2018.
Yeah, look, I mean, some of the recent things we've done is, you know, we're trying to get inventive on how we can support our ambassadors, and that's the touring pros, the guys that have committed to, you know, to struggle, the guys that have committed to the sport without necessarily having a massive income, like I think you guys discussed that, you know, really maybe Paul and Ricky have got a solid income out of the sport right now, but there's a lot of other touring pros that really don't, and they're pushing themselves to be on tour and do something that they love, but they also generally give a lot of time to the community. So, you know, we try to come up with a way to do that without having to just find dollars. You know, we've invested a bit of time into our ambassador hats, so that we put money from every hat sold into the ambassador. You know, we're still coming up with ways for the community activities to help raise funds for their own events, things like that. You know, obviously we are a clothing design business, so we've definitely been working on some new designs. We're getting smarter in what the products we did have, which ones we potentially will increase, you know, color offerings and maybe some design changes. Next year, I mean, you guys would have seen the big truck cruising around this year and last year. You know, it was an absolute beast on the road. Next year, we're going to divide and conquer that thing. We're going to cut it in half and basically create a West Coast and an East Coast truck. And we're going to have a full-time retail display being pulled behind each one of those trucks. So you won't see the big fifth wheel. You'll see a couple of RVs and 2 designated retail display trailers. That's a pretty big change. You know, but we felt like following the Pro Tour in the last couple of years has been good to get around the community. And, you know, next year we want to concentrate on hanging around a lot longer, you know, West and East Coast, and actually doing way more events in and around the communities. And that's definitely a big change. Myself personally, I'm going to try and stay at home as much as I can next year. Just, you know, have my family settled, my kids settled back into school, and you know, make sure that they're happy, because, you know, the last 2 years has been you know, quite a commitment, not just from me but from them. So, you know, I owe it to them to stay home, and I'll still be flying in and out of the US, but probably only for short trips, and you know, definitely spending way more time at home in the park with the kids playing disc golf.
Awesome. Well, that's great that you're going to be able to do that. Do you see? And I don't need all the details, but are these retail shops or that are going to be traveling around, these RVs? Do you see those as employees and friends or family, or is that going to be more of our touring players that are going to kind of have that commitment of doing an RV, but then also doing some of the sales?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, any of the guys that are working for me, it's definitely a friendship. You know, having the touring pros, we did try that out, and you know, obviously at the end of last season we had Greg and Philo. This season, at the start of the season, we had Matt Bell and Greg. But what we found is, you know, there's just a conflict in what you're trying to achieve. You know, when you're trying to provide accommodation and support for the pros like Greg and Matt, it kind of conflicts with actually going to community events and spending time in the community, and it's kind of two differing paths that you need to take. And obviously with the financial issues caused by the loss of the stock, we got to about May, June this year, and I basically let the guys know that, look, within the next month we need to make a decision on whether we keep the pros on the truck, because financially we need to actually reach more people and do more community events, because we were obviously hurting in the back end, and we had to make a snap decision basically after that sort of month of deliberation, and Greg and Matt had to end up finding their own ways for the rest of the season, which was definitely not ideal, and it was unfortunate we had to do that, but at the end of the day it was the right decision. And as a business, we needed to survive. It's always bigger than one or two people. Even sometimes I have to make decisions that go against what's best for me, but if it means the business stays strong, then that's the point, because we're helping more people than just myself.
Yeah. Well, and I think about some of the challenges that were experienced on the Pro Tour even in the opening year. I think about Zoe and Shasta and Paul Ullman and that whole crew who worked so hard, but at the same time they needed to get to the next event, they needed to practice at that event, and they needed to prepare to play really good golf, because they were touring players first and
Pro Tour employees second.
Yeah, second. And so I can completely understand when you're talking about outreach, whether it's community outreach, and you can only do so many demos before that starts then conflicting with, hey, I need to go and practice putt. I need to go throw my 500 putts today, or I want to go play the course, 3 times before this weekend, and it's a really big event. Getting tied up with doing demonstrations, which are also great, but I could see how there's only so many hours in the day, unfortunately, and when you're on tour, it sure seems like a life of fun and glamour, and well, maybe not glamour, but a lot of fun. But there's some serious work that needs to get done out on the tour. So
yeah, look, I mean, those guys that are on tour, there's aspects where it's phenomenal. It's like traveling. I've done a lot of that myself, and there's so many great experiences. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, this is their chosen profession, and they need to make enough money to survive. And a lot of these guys, I'd say 95%, maybe higher, the guys that are on tour are doing enough to survive. They're not actually making a living. They're not buying a house and starting a family and doing all those things that most people that are amateur players or part-time disc golfers are doing. So they need all the support they can get. And that's I don't know what the magic pill is for that, but you talked about Paul before, and potentially he was hinting at trying to get some financial backing from Adidas. And I guess that would be my challenge. My challenge to someone like Adidas Outdoor, and I've met the guys from Adidas Outdoor, and my challenge to them is to instead of stumping up products, why don't you start stumping up some cash?
Yeah.
Take it seriously and be the first ones to make that step. I would personally love to. If I had the money, you would be seeing it everywhere and anywhere I could put it. But at the moment, we're a small company, and we can only put products here and there. And financially, we only really put real finances into the Pro Tour and the World Tour. And that's because that's all we could afford. We're a small business. People think they see the advertising, the website, the products, the van, and they're like, "Cool, these guys must be huge." And realistically, mate, I'm the only employee of this company, and that's.
And I don't know what the guy behind you is doing.
He works for the. I don't know. Can't you see I'm on TV? Jesus.
So speaking of products and the company and business models, when I think about our general player base, affluent isn't really a term that's used, or we're not exactly.
We've seen statistics are that your touring players aren't necessarily that, but the average player tends to be a little bit, we'll say, older, maybe in their mid-20s to mid-40s.
I think it was 40s to 50s.
40s to 50s that have some cash. So,
sure,
statistic-wise, according to
that's not who we're seeing out most weekends. Again, we're talking about there's the recreational player base, and then there's what we see every weekend. So from a tournament competitive standpoint, We're not talking about a bunch of millionaires running around weekend after weekend. So my question to you is, when you came to the market, you came in at a higher price point. I don't think that's offensive. I think that's very easy to say. You guys came in with a really good quality product at a higher price point than what most disc golfers are used to. So my question to you is, how do you reply to that? There's even been conversation on the board here tonight. You know, people say, I really love it, but it seems expensive. What is your response to that?
I usually have a couple of answers to this one, but you know, I'll put it this way: if you made a beer and the beer cost you $3 because it's the best beer that you could make, or the ingredients you didn't go down the road and shove in the crap. You got all the good stuff. You put it in there, but it costs you $3. Now, the price that you need to sell that for is enough to allow a distributor to sell it and a retailer to make money who's selling it to people and setting up his shop in the community. You don't need to make big profits, but everybody needs to make a little bit. You know, so we are making small quantities. The costs are probably double what it would be if we were making double the quantities. But as a small business making small quantities, using the best fabrics, and we manufacture all the fabrics ourselves. We don't just go and grab a t-shirt off the shelf and shove a name on it. We're taking time to pick the fabrics which are breathable, stretchy, hard wearing, all that sort of stuff. That costs money, and especially if you're making small quantities of it. So, you know, if people stick with us in the long term, you know, we potentially will have the ability to give people much more options in terms of price points. But, you know, if a jacket costs me $80 to make, I'm not going to sell it for $80.
And I'll say this, one of the things I've heard, not everybody, but a lot of people do say, oh, this stuff is a little bit pricier than what we're used to seeing. But everybody that puts one on or has worn them, all of them have said,
the best I've ever worn.
It's the best I've ever worn, or it's well worth the price of what I paid for it. So quality costs money. A lot of times you get what you pay for.
The thing is, you know, you can sell somebody else's products, and you know, there's a lot of people in the disc golf world that are just stamping and buying another brand and putting their name on it and calling that an apparel line or a clothing line. Or you can actually think about disc golf and how to make products good for the sport, which is what we've done. But that does cost a lot more money because you're actually going all the way back to the manufacturing process. And, you know, I would love to have come in a bit cheaper, but at the end of the day, I needed to cover costs. And that's where we're at. You know, the first couple of years, it's about covering our costs, you know, and not going backwards, and designing stuff that is actually helpful for people playing the game. You know, and I'm pretty confident that we achieved that. I'm happy with the quality. Most of the products that I'm wearing is stuff that I've been wearing since 2014 when we made the first samples, and it still looks new. That's the whole point, you know. And I'm a hard-wearing guy. I'm running in and out of the trees or the bushes more than anyone, and filling my coffee on it, food all over it.
Fighting kangaroos.
Hitting kangaroos. Driving from Minnesota down to bloody Ohio and spilling my junk food on there because that's what I'm buying while I'm driving to get to these places. You know, it's about the quality. We wanted people to jump in there and go, cool, well, I'm going to pay extra, but it's going to last me. That's the whole point. You know, we want something that lasts, and we want to design things that are for the sport, not just, okay, you buy a box t-shirt or a tennis t-shirt and, you know, yeah, this will do. It's like, no, we've made the cuts of the pockets or whatever it is. Everything's designed for the sport. And, you know, I wish I could give away the products, but we need to sell them. You know, that's the whole point. We make money and then we put it back into the community, and you know, it's been a challenge, especially we were selling champagne to beer drinkers. And you know, I'm a beer drinker, but I do like good products that last me. I mean, I've had my headphones for 2 years, and that's because they cost me $250. You know, I could have got a cheap pair for $10 and then I'd replace them in 2 weeks. but buy the good stuff at last.
All right. Well, I love the philosophy to it, and it makes perfect sense. It's just been an interesting introduction into our sport because, as you've said, I feel like our price points overall, it seems like a lot of people are always fighting for that lowest price point because we're not running around with a ton of cash. But the people that do get it, or the people that are used to spending or have a similar mentality to what you're saying, I'll be the first to admit I'm a cheap guy. I usually buy cheap stuff. It doesn't last me as long as what you're saying, and I'm more likely to be replacing something or losing something or whatever the case might be. That's a mentality that I've had. However, I think when you continue to dial in on the people that are used to paying for good quality, and then through their testimony to everyone else, some other people may say, normally I am the cheap guy, but I think I do really want to invest in this jacket or invest in a good pair of pants or the non-stinky socks and all the other things that you offer. I think it's just a matter of a little bit of a mind shift, and it's clearly working as we're seeing more and more people investing in the products.
And look, I say it, and I've said this cruising around the US all year, is if you're really serious about supporting the sport, you're not going to go down and buy some Nikes from the outlet. You're going to go and buy a pair of Keens or a pair of Latitude shoes, or if you want a bag you're buying from a disc manufacturer. You've got to keep the money in the sport if you really want to help it grow. All those brands that are investing, because they're giving back, and you got to give a little too. That's the whole point. If we all give a little bit, we definitely grow better. And I'm making what I feel is like the best clothing in the sport, but I'm the first to advocate if anybody else is making a product that we don't make, and I'd say you call them competitors, I just call them partners, because we're all trying to do the same thing. Get out there and support them instead of just saying, I'm a Trilogy guy or I'm an Innova guy. Hey, if Latitude's making shoes and you throw Innova, so what? Go and support Latitude and buy their shoes. Like, they're a disc golf company that are trying to help your sport grow. Just, don't get too caught up in this whole brand mentality. It's like someone who's supporting you deserves the support back, instead of you going to the outlets and saying, I saved $10 because I bought a cheap pair of Nikes. Good on you. You gave $10 to Nike. Do nothing for disc golf.
No, and I think that's a great mentality. A lot of times when I think about tournaments and tournament sponsorships, people will say, I went and bought, or I went and bought my lunch here. I did this. When you have a bunch of tournament sponsors, I preach all the time. Go into the people that are supporting the tournament, and not only get your lunch from them or stay at that hotel or whatever, but just say, hey, I'm a disc golfer. I'm here from such and such state. I just want to thank you for supporting disc golf. And I can't tell you how many times, even though I don't get to play anymore, how many times I still say that every time we go somewhere, because these businesses need to hear that. And we say it all the time, support those who support us. And I know you're obviously a firm believer in it, and you've written some really great words about it. You've talked about it, and I couldn't agree more. I think that Keen, who has really supported me throughout the years and has supported SmashBoxx, same idea. If I have the chance and I'm looking at a pair of Keens or any other brand, go with the one that supports disc golf. Just for that reason alone, give them the nod. And I don't know, I'm just a big fan of that. And people want to get nitpicky over like you said, the $10. I mean, let's think about the big picture here and what this could mean. If a few thousand people opted for that $10 change, what do you know? There could be a $10,000 sponsorship at the end of the tunnel when someone comes and says, oh, yeah, we see a bunch of disc golfers come in here. We'd love to be the title sponsor of this, pro tour event that comes into town, because we see that kickback. So I don't know. It's, you get me talking about it, because I think about that as a tournament director as well, in a lot of ways, that you really just need to support those who are supporting you and supporting the sport. And I'll echo what you're saying. I think you're being very modest in that, you go out and you support these events. You and I even made the joke earlier I think it was this year yet, where at one point it was like 25 out of 28 weekends, you and I run into each other, and you're everywhere. But then that means that dude is out there supporting in so many different ways, and I almost challenge our own sport a little bit, because the second somebody comes into the sport, it's always, well, gimme, 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 gimme. Where's your giveaway? Where's your free stuff? I want all the free stuff. And everybody kind of has that mentality. Oh, you've been in business 6 weeks. Hey, can you support my tournament and give me $5,000 worth of stuff? Like, I think there's a model I think people need to get established, and to see what you've done in the short amount of time, but yet giving out so much support. I don't know your books, and I don't want to see them, but you're certainly extending yourself, and we really appreciate it. You support coverage, you support the actual events, you support players. Dare I ask, like, what's the big goal? What's the end goal in 2018, 2019? What are the big short-term goals?
Stay in business is the number
Okay.
one, because you can't do anything if you're not. Then we just want to get in and, run more community events. And, obviously as a brand, the more successful we get, the more money we can put back. And also, from a company point of view, we're reaching out outside of disc golf already. Probably in the past 3 weeks, we've actually signed up our first non-disc golf retailer for our sports clothing, specifically for training, and it's in a fairly well-known area and with a lot of traffic. And yeah, it was a nice little milestone for us to get that going, and that's kind of the start of how we want to try and push. We want to push into this area, because then we'll get outside people buying our products, and they're funneling money into our brand, and we're only going to funnel money into the sport. So it's that's exciting. The more we can grow that, the better chance we have to bring more money back into the sport. And I love supporting it. I've played this sport since I was 11, and I'll just keep giving it everything that I can.
We need more people. Yeah, we need more people like you.
Yeah, if you just keep giving more.
No, entrepreneurs. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Entrepreneurs and people who, with a little bit of business acumen. I think that's what I'm saying. I mean, we love givers as well, but that obviously comes with success.
So what would you say now? And I'm excited about your perspective. What would you say has been the best thing that you've learned or taken away from the United States disc golf scene? And I know you've literally been from end to end, corner to corner, but dare I say, if you had to generalize, some of your best experiences of disc golf in the U.S., well, dare I say, are they positive or are they negative? I'm asking for the best ones, but what's your take?
I can separate this into two worlds: the disc golf community, and then the rest of America. And I dare say there's only positives for both. I look at it this way: people ask me all the time, what's the best part, or what's the worst part about the US?
Mm-hmm.
And I look at this from a holistic point of view, as a human being, and not just as a disc golfer. The disc golf community is really strong. They're always going to look after you, as long as you do the right thing, and that's a good community to be involved in. And people have helped me all over the US, and I don't have a single bad word to say about anyone. I think it's a good insight into what it's like all around the world. I've managed to be in Europe. We've done stuff obviously down this end of the world. As a community, we're really strong. Some of the bad stuff is when you go into those areas, and this has happened to me at home too, and it's a bridge that I'm trying to build. You get a lot of issues between local groups or local people that are running things or whatever, but try to walk away and try to then come back together at some point when the heat of the argument's over or the issue's over, and just keep trying to build those bridges, because you're all trying to do the same thing, and that's, you know, look after each other, look after the sport. So that's a positive for the disc golf community. Now the real good stuff about the American community is that everywhere I go, it's like so much fun. You pull into a coffee drive-through, and the lady's like, "Can you say something dirty to me?"
People love your accent. I think Australian and Irish accents in the United States are just, people love them.
So that's been fun. But I will talk about what's not so fun, and that, you know, the people ask me what's the worst thing about the US, and I can say this without reservation: the worst thing about America is the non-access for every single person to basic health care, to look after people when they need you to look after them the most.
Okay. Yeah, and
I think if someone, what I would fix, I don't care about the politics and Trump, you know, who cares, whatever you like him or not. He's a little bit crazy, but we all are. Your lack of direction on providing people with just health cover to be looked after. I was there, I was sick, I had my son sick, I saw some of the pro players have injuries, whatever. Those guys can't go and get looked after. In Australia, you're sick, you don't even question it. You go to the doctor. Your kid's sick, you run to the doctor. You know, I think that's a shame, and you know, I hope that it gets fixed.
We'll get there.
Guys.
We'll get there. It's going to take us a lot longer, but we'll get there.
I think it's a centuries off.
I could finish the week with some fun stuff, though, like the good stuff. You know, your school buses are awesome. Those little stop signs on the side when they stop and people can't go past them. Absolute gold. We need that in Australia.
Really, you don't have that?
No, we don't. We have obviously we have speed control zones, but yeah, that thing is just so good protecting kids like that. What's the other thing? Oh, when people pull over in emergency lanes, or the police are pulling someone over because they've been naughty, you need to change lanes, and it basically you're protecting your emergency services, or just some Joe blogs like me who might have got flat tires on the side of the road. You know, that's such a great idea, and a lot of people always try to tell me, "Oh, man, there's so much shit going on. It's terrible." Blah blah blah. I'm like, no, you've got some really cool stuff happening in your country. Like, focus on the good stuff and work out ways to fix the other stuff. Because I could go on, like, every day when I was in the US, I'm like, oh, I need to make a note of all these things that I love, and then those little things that I hate. So one day I can talk about it on SmashBoxx.
Perfect.
Good. We love the idea of Chris's notes from the road. So my final question, I always say that, but this will be my final question, I think. If Johnny V and I traveled there, whether it was to watch golf or play golf or cover golf, or just to come there for vacation, for holiday, I think, as you guys might call it, would we be in for a culture shock? You know, now that you've experienced so much time there, here, and obviously living there, do you think it's something?
Here's how I would explain something that's really important. This is the size of a medium soft drink in America. This is the size of a medium soft drink in Australia.
Okay.
You've been going to too many Hardee's. That's what it is. Hardee's has those giant soft drinks, and I forget sometimes.
Not the product, it's the quantity.
It's like once a year I'll go to a Hardee's and be like, oh yeah, I'll take a medium drink, and they hand you this bucket. It's like they slosh it to you in your car, and I'm thinking, oh god, that's right. I'm at Hardee's where everything is ridiculously sized.
I think it's fair to say the U.S. in general. I see where he's going.
We're
with
a little
that.
bit. Yes, we have a little bit bigger.
We got larger sizes here.
I take in a little, junk food here and there, and obviously when I'm on the road, especially because you don't want to stop forever. You need something quick. But I got back here and went to McDonald's, and they gave me a medium. I'm like, what? But that's not a medium. What the hell is that? That's like a tiny child's small.
I'm not even gonna be able to get out of the drive-through before I'm done with that.
The medium in Australia, about $2. But anyway, Jeff, I'm just reading your notes there.
Fair to say though that you guys are a little bit more conscious of proportions and probably a lot more healthy eating.
We definitely have issues as well, and the size reference was more for the soda. I think you guys just probably have bigger portion sizes on food, but all around the US is completely different. You're like 50 countries, not 50 states. Everywhere is just slightly different, and it's great as an experience. And anyone that's traveling to the US, probably they come for a month holiday and go home. They visit one state. They don't get the fact that it's like being in 50 different countries. It's beautiful. There's so many variants from one state to the next. The people are genuine wherever you go, but they're all really different.
And how many states have you been in?
I've been to 46 now.
Wow.
That's more states than I've been in.
Yeah. That's incredible.
I've been to 48 countries, so I'm still ahead on countries.
Wow. That's also incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Well, all right, Mr. Finn. A great question came in on the board, so I do have to ask it. How is there any way we can prevent or spot or recognize or anything we can do about any of the stolen merchandise? Is there anything? I mean, are you're the main authorized dealer? I realize, but there's others that could be selling it. But outside of somebody trying to sell it out of the trunk of their car in a back alley somewhere, which would raise a flag. But is there any other way that someone could spot or notice or a red flag that should go up if maybe we did come across some of the merchandise?
Look, I would dare say if it's not being sold by a disc golf shop or by Dude, then it's definitely stolen. But we'll probably put a post up now that I've made it public and just ask folks to share it. And this disc golf community, I remember someone lost a trailer last year. It was stolen, and everyone got behind it. I know that there's been a few disc golfers lost bags or whatever, but we lost a couple of pallets. So hopefully, if anyone has any info, they can help, and that'll be awesome. At the end of the day, we've battled past it, and in about 2 weeks' time, when you all want those hoodies and jackets, they're arriving finally. Please get on there and support us, and that's how they can help. We'll keep giving back and doing what we do.
All right. Well, we appreciate you taking the time. Of course, we hate having to let the whole world know of the story, but it's certainly worth noting, and that does shed some great light into anyone that may have been waiting or frustrated or disappointed or something. If there's something that they were waiting on throughout the year or couldn't get their hands on, I think this certainly gives a little bit more insight to that as well. And I'm sure you guys will be ramped up and ready to go for 2018 and beyond.
We definitely will, and thank you guys for doing what you do, and I look forward to seeing more of the live coverage next year.
Yeah, you'll be home. You'll be in prime position for it on the other side of the world. All right, Chris. Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate everything you do. We appreciate your outlook and also how you work with your ambassadors, how you work with the sponsors, and how you treat everyone else within the industry, including the tournaments, the video crews, and everyone else and beyond. We just we genuinely appreciate it, and we wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to more from Dude in 2018.
Thanks, gents. I'll catch you guys later. It's lunchtime over here. Probably sleep time, guys.
Go get an extra large soda. Have a good
Quench that thirst.
Have a good day, buddy.
Thanks, Chris.
See ya. Again, Chris Finn of Dude. And interesting that I hate that we have to break this news. That
it really sucks. And
what a massive setback.
It would have been. I mean, I can't. It's his business. I wish it would have come out a little earlier. I mean, because if it really happened at the beginning of the year, by now it's been 6-7 months. A lot of that. Again, like I said, the further away the crime happens, the harder it is. Now, so maybe it's tough, but hopefully, things will work out for him in the long run. We always say support those who sport disc golf, and that does include Dude. They're one of the commercials I do enjoy playing and listening to because I get to hear Chris's voice, and they've got a nice soothing music behind them.
Well, and they're doing a great job out there. I believe it's his parents who have been out there on tour, crushing it, doing a ton of work, and just, he's made it a family affair, and that is his family was over here in 2016 for a little bit of the year, and he's flat out working his ass off. That's the most polite way I can put it. He is working really hard, and I see him and his entire crew doing what they're doing. And when again, that grow the sport hashtag and or phrase sometimes gets thrown around out there, and there's plenty of times where I want to just call BS on people when I hear it. They want to attach it to anything and everything. And then there's people that I truly believe are saying that from the heart, and they mean it when they say that. And Chris is certainly one of those guys. I just throw it around. I'm just like,
whatever.
Come on, it's a good cliche. I'll just throw it out there. But Chris, when he says it, he means it and he backs it up. So very cool. A couple questions or details on the board. Those aren't his parents? Steve and Sharon Manning? Maybe his parents were here last year? Is that what I'm confused with? But some question off the board is, where is it manufactured? That's a question actually I don't know the answer to. I don't think it's Australia specifically, but I don't know that. We'll have to. I mean, I'm sure if he's out on the board, he could chime in and let everyone know. Where is Dion? I don't know. Does anybody know where Dion is? It's 10:45 local time.
Which means 8:45 Dion time.
Yeah, it's prime time. Deion Sanders time. No.
Yeah. Everyone else is too old for that reference, but
that's all right.
We'll take it.
Yes, we're gonna have Dion Arlyn on the show here shortly. We'll make sure to check in with him, and he's been very vocal on the boards throughout. We really appreciate his insights. And for those who don't know Dion, he used to play a lot more and travel more used to travel and play more competitively more often. And now he's just not out on the scene cross country like he used to be.
It was like 2007 through like 2012. He played at USDGC.
I'm not that creepy. I don't keep track of what years he was out there. Were those his years? Were those the primetime years? We'll ask him.
I'd assume so. I remember him from 2009 at USDGC. So
Okay.
That's when I remember first seeing him. I'm assuming it's right around there. And I suppose I could look up his PDGA and find out his touring years.
Was he in the 32,000s? All right, Dion. Well, I guess where I was going with this is, should we open an after show? Should we close things out so he's fresh as an after show guest, or do we go right to him right now?
Let's do an after show.
Okay, that sounds good to me. That makes perfect sense.
I'm good with that.
Then he'll be a fresh face to kick off our after show. Wow, we're gonna almost have a structured after show. That's kind of scary. Guest and everything. He's apparently a pretty special guy. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna close things out. I know there's plenty of conversation still for the after show. I still want to talk about sponsorships and the craziness. Seeing MVP now be the MVP Open, taking place out at the hallowed grounds that is Maple Hill. So that's very exciting to see that change in development, at least for the 2018 Disc Golf Pro Tour season.
And there's really not a lot of information behind it. It's just more or less that they've stepped up as a sponsor. I'm sure we'll hear more from Steve and MVP as they actually release the information.
Correct. So, but that's definitely. And then there was a side conversation that took place after that that got me all worked up a little bit earlier before the show. We'll see if we can dip into some of that. But we'll then have a giveaway, of course, during the after show. We'll also catch up with Dion Arlyn. So I'd like to go ahead and thank our contributor in Dana Vici, the once dark and now so light and beard shaved Dana Vici. I'd also like to thank Chris Finn of Dude, for Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy. This has been podcast 171. Stick around for the after show. there's a giveaway. That's all you need to know. We'll see you then when you step inside the Smashbox.
And supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Smashbox TV podcast 171 after show. We're here.
I debated when I wanted to join in on that one.
All right,
I
I'm
went with
good
just
with
the
that.
show.
That works for me. For show.
Oh, show?
All right, we are here in the after show. We just caught up with Dynamite Dana Vici along with Chris Finn during the regular show. We're going to have special guests, Dion Arlyn, an after show guest here as he's coming in from the West Coast. And he's been a contributor on the board. he laughed when I said that he's been vocal out on the board. Well, he's been a contributor on the board. He does a ton of research and stats, keeping everybody updated. We see him make some interesting posts about battles, head-to-head competitions, things like that taking place in the disc golf community. So we'll be able to get him to join us in just a few moments. We'll also be talking about a number of other topics. And as always, if you wish to participate with us in a live capacity, interact with us, let us see something or ask us a question or have a question for a guest or something of that nature, please feel free to do it on the YouTube live chat. We see that it's actively moving along right now, including some of the newest news. Should we real quickly discuss this?
The GBO news?
GBO has done what?
They have opened up 368 or 370, we'll just say, additional spots to the event.
What?
I don't know anything more than that.
Oh.
That's what I've heard, that they've opened it up. For those of you on the board, if you could help fill us in on that. I know Christy had mentioned it on the YouTube chat, and I believe we had Marcus mention it on Facebook chat. Where is the expansion? Is it in advanced? Is it in all divisions? What?
Well, immediately it just makes me think, great, still, how long is the wait list still?
That's a great question.
As I was actually just going to go out to Disc Golf Scene and see if I could find any information out there as to, and maybe somebody out there already knows. I know as I was driving to your house, I saw a little note saying that Dynamic Disc was ready to go live.
Yes, I saw
and
Bobby
I was like,
getting ready.
why are Doug and Bobby, unless it's the new Doug and Bobby Tuesday night show, why are they going live with something? And now that makes perfect sense as to why that might be. So I'm clicking right now on the Glass Blown Open NT. Oh, and it looks like it was the 2017 version, so that's not going to do me any good. If I could maybe click on a 2018 Glass Blown Open. Spectator badge. Okay, here we go. So MPO and FPO only. It says that time and date stamp this. It says right now that for the MPO and FPO only side of registration, there is currently 153 out of 216 spots taken. So it is not sold out. There are 63 pro spots available according to the website. There are 24 out of 32 spots taken on the women's side. So as of right now, including Christy Moore, Smashy, we see 24 women registered for the Glass Blown Open in the pro division out of a potential 32 spots. And it's funny, I'm looking down the list.
Christy's giving a little bit more information. She says that the bottom half is going to get cut after the second round, and they'll play a B tier on the final day. The spots were added in most divisions, but a full pool of 184 were added to the MA2 field.
Wow.
Which, I guess, if you have
Get your
100
intermediate on.
Yeah, if you have 100 plus people on the wait list, and you have a spare course, why not? I mean, I understand why not. It's a lot more work. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot of reasons not to do it, but the fact that they are doing it is amazing. They added Clover Cliff Ranch and are making the municipal course into 2 new courses. Wow. Right. Does Dion know how to get a hold of us?
I don't know. Probably not.
Dion? Have you been in communication with him?
Not so much. Dion, I'm not sure if you know our login for whatever it's called, the Skypes. So if you'd like to go ahead and hit us up on there, I just put it out there, I think, on the board. That is our Skype.
Is it?
Yeah, I think that technically is it.
Oh. I didn't know what the actual email address was. I just knew our Skype
I think that's
name.
the one that's attached to it.
It could be.
Do you call us? Well,
sure.
Dion, you get on Skype, and then you friend us or message or ping us or tap us or poke us.
Just call us.
Or call us.
Don't poke us? No one pokes anyone anymore.
You say. You haven't been out with me on a Friday night in a while.
That's true. We haven't. That's not a lie.
Whatever that means. Within 30. All right. So they added 2 courses. Wow. So that's definitely some big news. And like I said, I wonder how many people are still on waiting lists, even with that many spots added to an event. That's incredible. We'll see if we can get Dion here in the works. And then I think that adds to it. It's so funny. If you go out to Disc Golf Scene right now, you see the 2018 Spectator badge. You can purchase that. The MPO and FPO version. You see a Flex Start C tier, Flex Start C tier, a junior event, another Flex Start C tier, the A tier, the C tier at Clover Cliff Ranch, the Double Disc Challenge at Hammond Park, and another C tier. I think there's 10 or 11 events. It's crazy. All right. Well, it looks like he's got things all dialed up. He's like a professional at this, it seems like. We're going to welcome none other than Dion Arlyn to the show.
Yay, Dion! Welcome to the show.
What up, guys?
What up, buddy?
Thanks for having me.
We're
doing fantastic. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, thank you. We know that we have a number of high-rated players that bounce in and out of the show on any given week or
sure.
Throughout the season and the year. For those who may not know you, like Johnny and I have, give everyone a little introduction to who you are and your background in disc golf.
Yeah, you bet. I was thinking about how long I've been out of the scene and what that might mean, and how little probably anybody knows other than the cool one on the board. But basically, I played in Oregon. Colin Sexton and Nate Sexton got me into the game in 2003. Went to high school with them. And then I was hooked. We all played competitively, and I turned professional in 2007, following Nate's example. And then we all battled in the Northwest for a few years. I was super active in 2009, 10, and 11, and 2011 being the year that I went out on tour and drove around the country in a white mail van that had multiple transmission failures. Hung out with Yuli and Nico, and those guys really helped me on the road. And had a good year, had some fun, and that was probably the last hurrah. And after that, I grew up, got a job, got married, and now I've got a 2-year-old and living life.
And now you watch us Tuesday nights.
Yeah, now I'm a fan more than anything, and I live vicariously through Nate. Text him and check in with him and see what the inside scoop is on the road. But Yep, more watching of Jomez and Smashbox than playing of competitive rounds at this time.
And you've been sponsored by Discraft. And I think Miles over at Paragon has supported you. He's still out supporting people to this day. When do you get to play? Do you play at all casually or recreationally? Your tournaments, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was playing casually, living in Corvallis, Oregon for all of my life. But over the last few years, I've been playing casually, playing the local B tiers when they came around. I was involved in a big project with the credit union I was working for over the last year that had me working 6 to 7 days a week, 10 to 14-hour days, pretty massive stuff. And I ended up quitting that position so that I could spend more time with my family, and we just moved up to Steilacoom, Washington, home of the Fort Steilacoom Open, where my wife is from. And so I actually got to play a few events in September as I didn't have a job. So that worked out.
Now,
we might be getting some feedback from your audio.
yeah, I'm not sure if you're hearing that. Are you hearing that or not?
Just might need to turn it down just a little bit, but go ahead.
I lost my train of thought now. I don't remember what I was going to ask you. Oh, so I guess really kind of catching up with the world in terms of the competitive disc golf. As you said, you kind of have this hurrah in 2011. Obviously, you went through all the motions to get you to that point. But what are you seeing now versus 2011 when you were out on the road full time? You had your disc golf touring struggles. Whether it was vehicles or whether it was, all the things that go into being on the tour. But now fast forward 6 years, 7 years, we're looking at this 2018 season. Give us your perspective on the sport as you've kind of taken a back seat to something that you were that was so deeply ingrained in you.
Of course, yeah. By far, the most amazing progress has been in the media attention. You guys putting out great content, Jomez putting out great content. I think that's the piece of it that I find myself wishing was there the most when I was playing. I get to look back and say, oh, wow, I beat Nate Doss and Avery Jenkins at an A tier in Idlewild on my first time out on the road. And no one will ever know about that besides the 60 people watching tonight, if we're lucky. What's the count?
It was nice of you to slide it in there, though. I'm sure they appreciate it.
I've never been bad at self-promotion. I can definitely get those hooks in when I need to, but there's no record of that, and that's what bums me out. Is I saw the Idlewild coverage this past year, and I was like, oh, I remember that hole, and we'll never see me throw it ever again.
You don't know that.
Don't say never.
Your kid gets old enough, you might make a trip here or there. I mean, you can clearly still play. I looked at this year, 2017 for you. You played in 4 sanctioned events.
Yep.
You won $1,500. That ain't bad. That's nothing to scoff at. $1,000 at the Farragut Open.
Yep. For not having a job, that actually helped out quite a bit with the timing of the A tier. Went over to Idaho with Chandler, and we both played well. Took 3rd place, and what was nice was Central Coast was there, so there's a small chance that might get some of those rounds on YouTube, but for a moment there after that event, I was rated 1028, which is hysterical, way inflated and not accurate. So I was the 15th highest rated in the player in the world after coming out of retirement. So that was a hoot.
Josh Anton did it. Why can't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're still
I've
rated.
done my time, Anton. Come on.
And you're still rated 1015. So 31 career wins, 32,000 in career earnings, member since 2004, as I rattle off some of the PGA statistics. How far can you still throw? I think that's what a lot of people want to know.
Yep. It was not there for me in that first few tournaments I played in September, but just this past week, things were clicking, and I threw probably high 500s on a few turnaround drives out at Fort Steilacoom. And when it clicks and the muscle memory is there, and I'm not super out of shape because I've been typing on a keyboard for 5 years, then it all works out.
And so, speaking of YouTube, people can find you. you were one of the early guys that we saw featured in some instructional videos. Talk about what those were at the time and where we're at now.
Yeah, that was an absolute blast. That actually was filmed the week after I won that A tier in Kentucky. Went up to the Michigan to see Discraft and hung out with Mike Wagner, and Brian Sullivan was still in charge of the team at that time. So he grabbed me and we went out to Toboggan as they were just getting ready for the USA DGC, and we filmed that distance clinic. That was an absolute blast. I really enjoyed being on camera, getting to share basically all the information I had just gleaned off of message boards and watching Avery play in Oregon and any, amount of distance knowledge that was out there, I soaked up and tried to put into practice and condense into that video. So people tell me it's helpful and useful, and they've seen it. They don't recognize me with glasses and a beard and a suit and tie, but other than that, that was an absolute blast.
Yeah,
I don't see. Oh, go for it.
I was gonna say, someone mentioned that is probably one of the highest viewed disc golf videos ever. I mean, whenever you look up distance, that is one of the videos you find. And if there's one thing that I think everybody tends to look up on YouTube when you first start playing is, how do I throw further or farther?
Yep, that's definitely true. My previous upstairs neighbor had a heart attack and was fanboying out for a few weeks after he realized that his downstairs neighbor had helped him learn how to throw far.
Wow.
So that was fun. But, it came back down to earth once we went and played Willamette, and he was only a few strokes behind me. So, that took the fanboy out.
So being a numbers guy and someone that pays attention to everything that's going on, what do you make of the advancements that we've seen, whether it's the World Tour with their metric system or the PDGA and the live scoring that's obviously taken hold in the last decade or so, and then I would say sitting on top of all of that list obviously has to be UDisc and the things that they're providing for the fans at home, but also for SmashBoxx to then give to the fans. How do you think that translates to whether it be new viewers or existing viewers or number crunchers or statisticians? How do you think that all impacts everyone?
Of course. Well, I would say right now the hardest challenge, I think, for this amazing content that everyone's producing and all the advances that we've seen that you just rattled off is it's still all concentrated and sitting in the disc golf fandom viewership.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Jomez, and every single video an hour after it's posted has got its 30,000 views. It's the same 30,000 disc golfers, unfortunately, who watch every video that gets made. And so as I see those numbers creep up, that tells me, okay, we're getting more outside viewership. They're showing their friends. Their friends are seeing the quality of the content and going, oh, yeah, this is fun. I can watch this. I can follow along. They might start tuning into the live disc golf, and then with the advancements of the stats and live commentary and live shows that you guys are putting on, then they can start to follow along and really get plugged into the scene. But all of that stuff is amazing for me, and as a fan, it's super exciting to watch and be a part of. The stats side of thing was something that I was dying for the longest time, and player ratings was the only thing that we had to crunch numbers against for the longest time, and that was so monotonous and so many arguments with Chuck Kennedy. But now we have all these different numbers, and I've got my own numbers that I've put on custom scorecards I've made for myself for tracking my own progress in rounds, and so all of that is super exciting. But I think it's all still within the disc golf fandom, and then we need to try to find a way to get more people introduced to it because it's high quality content that everyone can enjoy.
So the follow-up is, how do we cross that bridge? How do we make that crossover? We have these things, and you're right. I mean, we're no different than the group of Pokemon players that gets together, the Dungeons and Dragons guys in the basements, and we're all,
Yep.
We're this niche sport amongst ourselves, and we all think we're really cool, but to the outside world, maybe we're not yet. So is there a player or a thing or a sponsorship or a course or a moment that you feel like might help us cross over?
Hey man, I'm doing my part. I got married. I have a kid. That's 2 new people involved in the sport. So, my daughter's 2. She doesn't have a choice. We watch disc golf and she loves it. So, honestly, I would say it's going to come down to people who have a vested interest in the sport. Like I would say I have a vested interest in the sport. I'm not making any money off of it, but I want to see it grow, and I want disc golf to be taken more seriously. If I'm out on the course and I'm going, hey, did you guys know about this tournament that just happened over the weekend? The casual players are going to go, oh, what? There's tournaments? What do you mean? And I can say, hey, go check out this video. Go watch this link. You know, hey, that Nate Sexton guy who's commentating, I know him. He's from Oregon. You know, he's from up the road. And so now they get to kind of make that connection, see the high quality content, and I think it's just going to spread virally like that.
Okay.
Where do you see yourself in the sport in the next couple of years?
Well, I'd like to be able to play more. I landed a job with a credit union in Tacoma as a trainer, so I'm back on an hourly schedule, so putting in my tight 40 and got weekends back. So I'd like to continue to play and compete. I did have some success, and I've crunched some numbers in my last 10 tournaments, and I played very well. So I still have it over, 3 years of disc golf. I've played 10 competitive tournaments and, shooting 1020 rating. But I'd like to play more and hopefully get in the commentator booth and give Terry a run for his money.
You can just have my job. I'll admit, and I kind of joked with Steve Dodge just about this again today. I enjoy doing what I do. I truly do. But if there's another role if there's another role for me that makes sense for me to dip into or to transition into, and we have good quality people that can come in and fill, say, a commentator role, or a pair of people that can fill a commentator role. I'm sure some people think there's an ego built into me and what I'm doing in this, and if there was, it's just that it was. I'm kind of over it. I want the best content out there. I want our brands to grow, and I want the sport to grow, and all of those things. Commentating's fun, but it's not an absolute necessity for me. And one of the things that goes along with it is it's because I'm doing 10 other things. If I could just put on a headset and a microphone and worry about nothing in the world except for what's going on that course, I think I would be better at it, and I think I would enjoy it more. But as of right now, I'm doing 9 other things while trying to walk around this 18-hole course, during a live round. And so when it's funny you say that, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off on a random tangent, but we look for gems. We look for other people. We've had really great luck with a lot of solid commentators, and I think as we grow and as the sport gets bigger, we're going to be able to kind of expand those roles and have people doing more things. So,
yeah, I think that's true. I think that the disc golf world is hungry for that quality. I mean, you can see how much everybody loves Nate and the commentating he does, and it's him and I used to watch Billy Crump and the videos from the past, and we couldn't handle it, man. It was so funny. We were dying. We're like, okay, there's got to be a better commentator in the world. His stuff is great, but we wanted the sport to get some legitimacy and for people to think, wow, this is not just a bunch of stoners playing disc golf in the woods. Like, okay, there's actually a sport element to this. People take it seriously. Like, it can be analyzed. There are consequences. There are, stakes involved where players are playing for money, and there's history and there's storylines, so putting that all in place, I think you can just see the demand for that quality commentating and just quality content. So it's there, and I think we'll find more gems, and we'll get more people involved, and it's all because of people like you, Terry, pioneering the way and taking on all those roles and making it happen in the first place. And I think that's key and crucial for this sport. So thank you.
Well, no, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. I do think about commentator styles. We think about Billy, and I feel like there was a lot of people, and I'm sure the same could be said of me and of all of our commentators out there, whether it's an Avery Jenkins or a Jamie Thomas or a Nate Sexton. It's hit or miss, and every single one, some people are going to really associate with. There was this fun, lovable quality that you saw when you got Billy Crump commentary, but as you're saying, it maybe wasn't at the most professional level. He had his Billyisms, he had the things that he said, which became very much catchphrases, and things that are still used to this day. And people have no idea where some of these things came from, that they all came from, Billy on a microphone at one point. But you said it perfectly. We're seeing this evolution. We're seeing
Yep.
a little bit more serious tone. At some point, I'm not going to be able to crack all the same jokes that I that I currently say, and we may have to tighten things up on a more professional level. And that's all part of this, this just overall evolution of it. And it's interesting to see. Yeah, one's on the board.
I can't watch Steve Brinster putt without hearing Billy say, "Driving the bus, driving the bus,
driving the bus,"
like, every time.
And it was funny because just yesterday, I forget who I had the conversation with. Oh, this weekend, a gentleman that I ran into while running the tournament. He's a local. He was just out kind of walking around while the tournament was happening that I was running, and he said something about Big Germ. He's like, "Oh yeah, those guys crack me up," and he said something about watching them. I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't watch them," and he's like, "What?" And he was just so baffled that I don't watch post production. I'm like,
not when you're there.
A, I'm usually at an event, and or B, I've just gotten either doing it live and or doing some form of editing. The last thing I want to do is watch anyone of any kind doing some kind of commentary on something, and it has nothing to do with the commentary. I just don't want to watch it, period.
Yep.
And his mind was blown that I don't sit and watch Big Germ and Sexton. And then I later said, too, besides a time constraint and all of that, I said, I purposely kind of don't like watching other commentators or listening to them. I don't want to pick up on anything they say. And not to say they're not all great, but I don't want to, you think about like a term or a phrase, and then when somebody else grabs onto it, and it's easy to do in our sport, I feel like, like you just said with the bus, I think some of the references then become the exact same, and I don't know. So for that reason, I kind of don't pay attention to some of the other commentators, even if they're considered the best in the world. I don't want to accidentally pick up on something they say or do. Maybe that's silly. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
that's fair.
overanalyzing
I
it.
mean, everybody has their style, and you want to keep to yours. And I want to keep hearing phrases like "in fact" when you're making declarations, because everybody knows that by saying something, you're not actually stating the fact unless you say "in fact."
Yeah, of course.
And then state the fact.
Yes. And it's awesome when people bring them to my account, because then I so consciously think, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And then
Can't help yourself.
No, I think sometimes I get better at not doing them, but then I just latch onto a different one. So yeah.
In fact,
you are doing so many things and playing so many roles. Other players or other people who are doing commentary have the luxury of only having to do the commentary and getting to prepare and kind of getting to refine that. I mean, you are putting in tremendous hours. And in fact, that's the next thing that I want to see from Smashbox, is that behind the scenes. I don't think anybody really knows or appreciates how much time and effort you or these other crews are putting into making these videos, and the late nights and the lack of sleep and the travel. I want to see some of that behind the scenes.
Yeah, the problem is there's no one to film it, because we're all doing the filming.
Maybe at GBO I'll try to do that if I get to go to GBO.
You got to tie a GoPro, just tie it on Terry Cam.
Yeah.
So clearly you've latched on and you're very good with all the statistics. You sent us the Paul versus Ricky thing. Were you on earlier when we were talking about the world rankings? Were you listening?
I had to get some pizza earlier for the family, so that might have been in my window of not watching.
We were talking about world rankings and how
Johnny's all mad.
Paul and Ricky are tied for the #1 world ranking.
Oh yeah.
What's your solution? Let's hear it from you. What's your solution?
Does that make sense to you, or do you think that I came out and said there's no way. You can't have a tie at #1 specifically, but you shouldn't have a tie at all. There has to be a tiebreaker. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah.
You're much more statistically.
Statistically, depending on what your criteria is, there can be a tie. So I think it comes down to, are you choosing criteria that allows for a tie, or are tiebreaker rules being built into what is determining the world ranking? And then secondly, I would say, disc golf loves reinventing the wheel, but golf has been there. It's been there for a long time. And why do we have to feel like we need to be different? Is there ties in the world rankings in golf? I don't know. I haven't done that research, but I would say that if there is there, then there can be in disc golf. I mean, why? What's the difference?
And I think you more eloquently said exactly what I said, which is
Yeah.
it can happen in that the math is there for it.
Mhm.
Johnny's argument is just, okay, we need more math so that
shouldn't happen.
it can be broken.
Correct.
There needs to be some
Sure.
other
You need to be able to drill down
one.
X amount of levels until there isn't a tie. If it comes
Well,
down,
you guys got the spreadsheet I sent you a few weeks back. Over the 17 events they played in against each other, Paul beat Ricky by 16 strokes. That's literally less than 1 stroke per event over the course of a year. Ricky cashed more, he had more wins, but Paul never placed out of the top 3 in events that they were both playing together. Ricky had a majors win, Paul also had a majors win in Europe. So who had the better year? I mean, it makes sense that if they're that close throughout the entire season, that they're both tied for number 1, but it's subjective at that point.
Well, exactly, and that's where I said player of the year, although there's, that's no longer subjective. That's, again, all put together by actual algorithms and math and statistics and whatnot. I feel like just the term player of the year sounds a little bit more subjective than a world ranking.
Sure.
I guess hence the term rank is in there. I don't know. To me, I'd be okay if player of the year. I think you can bring so many more of the things you just said. Bring that into the conversation. World ranking, they're numbers. They're just numbers.
I agree, but there needs to be, to me, there needs to be more numbers. If you can have a tie, the numbers are wrong. The way you figured it is wrong. Not the numbers themselves, but the way you figure it. You need to be able to break that tie somehow. Just anyway. I don't care if it's distance.
Who has the bigger shoe size?
I don't care if it's distance traveled in your vehicle.
Sure.
I don't care. Just make it happen so that there is not a tie. It bothers me that there's a tie.
Really, who wins in this situation is Nate, because he can say he's the second best player in the world in good conscience. So
That's
point. Awesome for him.
That's a great point.
And Nate's model changing a little bit again this year, or should I say transitioning over the last couple of years. Obviously traveling with Paul, pretty much just him and Paul, and now in his own ride with his family, with I don't want to say a newborn, now just an infant. Do you project any kind of differences taking place this year for Nate and his performance?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I have a 2-year-old. She'll be 2 in a month, and over that first 2 years of her life, it was really hard. She was a great baby. She slept all the time. She ate fine. She never had any problems, but it still makes life harder. And taking that on the road with you as a first-time kind of solo traveler, feeling the weight and responsibility of providing for your family and putting all those miles on the RV absolutely is going to take a toll. Now, Nate is incredibly good at what he does, and Brianna is amazing as a person, as a mom, as a co-companion. So I think that they're going to be incredibly successful at what they do. But I definitely think there's going to be a learning curve. And I think you even saw that a tiny little bit in Pittsburgh. He had a tough tournament there, but bounced back and won a major a couple of weeks later. So I think that he'll be successful overall, but it's definitely going to be a harder road and harder journey than the traveling lifestyle with Paul McBeth.
Well, he's got just Firebird money and commentating money to retire on. Yeah,
that's all you need, man.
Yeah. Again, comparing yesteryear to where we're at, isn't it kind of crazy to think that there's a need? There's this someone is actually making a little side income, not only just on the touring series discs. You talk about Nate and Paul, and then all of the different name brands, Paige and Nate and Val and all those people in the brands, but then also the side gigs, whether it's doing the clinics, whether it's if you excel in that, if you're involved with something like Edge or Zoe, who's doing her DGU play activity, or Eagles Wings that we've seen, Hannah so actively participate in. Yep. Isn't it kind of crazy that we have all these offshoots, these other things that are branching out from the core of just playing?
Yeah, and I think that is going to be the model for the touring pro, and I think that these guys are really just creating that mold because, income from prize money alone is not, possible to make a living. This year has probably been the richest year for the tour players. As you look at the money list, you've got 2 guys over 60,000, which has probably never been done before, and you've got a whole host of other people in the mid-20s. And I think the year I went on tour, I made $5,000 or $6,000 in the 90 days that I played, and I lost money. So there's really not anything to be had there. But when you are good at what you do, when you can organize events, when you have product, when you have clinics, and you have that fan base and draw as a player to pull upon, then you can supplement the touring and make playing not the most important part, which actually allows you to play better and win more money. So it all feeds into itself.
Well, so I guess you've just kind of answered my very next question, which is, what would be your words of advice from afar for either the people that are already on tour or the people that are thinking about going on tour? What would be your words of advice?
So I'm kind of split on this one, because I went on tour and I had an absolute blast. I don't regret any of it, but I kind of got me sour to disc golf by the end of that trip. I was playing some B tiers in Oregon in September and really freaking out about rent money. Playing a tournament up in Washington on courses where there's 200-foot holes and maybe a 2-foot gap to get there, and thinking, this is it. I'm playing literally for my rent against a local who throws a beat-in JK AVR left-handed flick roller on every other hole, and I'm not going to beat him. And this can't happen. So I was in a bad headspace, and I think as a person who wants to go touring, you need to be prepared for that. I had played 40 events the year prior, so almost every weekend, and I'd done that exclusively in Oregon and Washington. So I was good at traveling, had my routines, knew what I needed to do to be successful every weekend. But I don't think the toll of driving across the country and playing for keeps, I don't really think people know what that means until they get out there and do it. So I'd say go for it, but be prepared.
I think we've seen a lot of players throughout the years essentially create a little bit of a cushion. They basically save up to then go on tour because, as you just said, going on tour, unless you are one of the top handful of players in the world, is not a lucrative proposition. They're out there hustling. They're doing all these side gigs that we just referenced. And just overall, I mean, there's not a lot of money out there. So I think you're seeing these I don't want to say cliques in a negative way, but these cliques of people, these packs of people that are learning to travel together and to be very efficient. We see people like Paige Pierce getting on board with the whole van life as she's posting pictures throughout the week, showing that she's going to be kind of converting to the van style of traveling around the country.
I want to take credit for that van lifestyle. If you guys don't recall, had a 99 Ford Windstar with a half cutout bed in the back, storage underneath, had the gate in the back because it was an old mail van, locked from the outside, had my choice of kidnapping kids at will. They weren't going to be able to get out. I think I should just have the godfather of tour life, van life, but you tell me.
I would give that to you if a few years earlier I hadn't met and had the pleasure of interacting with none other than Glenn Whitlock. I got to give him like the original OG of van tour life. Now, and he was so much tougher than you because he didn't have a license. He couldn't even drive the van that he lived in. He had to have
true.
He had to have somebody else driving it. So I don't know. I got to give the van life title over to the Whittler.
Oh,
is that
man,
fair enough?
Is so crazy.
Is that a good enough reference for you and fair enough?
That's amazing. We played a double disc court with him at Willamette Park when he came through, and he had this old fastback literally from the 70s. It's like, that's the one that I set the MTA record with, and he hands it to me like, here, you try it. And I'm just like, oh, what? I'm not going to throw this. This is older than me. This is history. I'm holding history.
What do you think about other disc disciplines, other disc sports? We've seen, again, since you've kind of stepped aside, we've seen Ultimate, jump into professional ranks as now there's actually paid teams, a couple of different leagues. Who would have guessed? All of this stuff. And I don't think we're seeing too many of the other disc disciplines kind of take off. But what do you think about
but we're even seeing more casual disc stuff being played, like Can Jam and
Sure.
the frisbee bottle thing that I see.
Yeah,
at the park.
Beersby and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
that one.
Is that all just part of our natural growth and progression, and maybe some of those might help land us more mainstream?
You know, it's been attempted before to bring these different groups together. I honestly don't know why there's not more crossover. I mean, culturally speaking, the ultimate crowd and the disc golf crowd are quite different, but in that segment, there's lots of overlap. You know, I got taught ultimate frisbee before disc golf, and that's what Nate and Colin and I all played in high school, and they continued to play it. Colin played for Oregon State University. Nate played it recreationally. You know, so there's so much overlap, and there's, you know, disc community and frisbee community is so, you know, compatible. But I don't know why there's not more crossover events and more all around competitions. I think disc golfers would benefit from those skill sets. I don't think they understand how important it is to be able to throw a lid compared to just a, you know, speed 14 driver. So I think that if more disc golfers were involved on the frisbee aspect of it, that they would be better at disc golf. I think that's true. But I think there's just some weird barriers, maybe culturally or historically, that are just keeping those two camps in separate places. And I'd love to see that come together. And Nate and I had contemplated putting I think it was the Whiff Diff overalls, holding it in Corvallis. He was in contact with some of the organizers, and they came and checked out Crystal Lake Complex, which is a huge sports complex in Corvallis, where some of the Ultimate World Championships have been held and the Collegiate Championships have been held. So yeah, I think that down the road we'll see those two camps come together. The professional ultimate's fun to watch. If anything has going to have a chance to get into the Olympics, it's going to be ultimate. That's much more accessible from a viewer standpoint, much more easy to understand. Team sport, scoring touchdowns, that's really easy. People will get behind that. The athletes there, tremendous athletes, true pro caliber athletes. And then I think disc golf will hopefully try to catch on behind that.
Well, I think unfortunately you're talking about this crossover that we're not seeing. There's always kind of been the joke that when disc golf is where ultimate players go to die, so to speak. You know, they slow down. They're not quite as agile. They're not running. They're not in the shape that they were. And so when they want a much slower paced sport, it's just a transition to move into disc golf. Whether that's fair or not, but I unfortunately I think you're going to see the divide be greater. I think at some point we were kind of near one another, and now I think they're just going to continue to separate, because I think you're going to get more people passionate about disc golf and take it serious. You're going to have your really passionate people about ultimate, and I wish there would be more crossover by all means, but I think the reality is I think you're going to see them grow apart because they're both blossoming into their own entities, and I don't know. I don't know that you're going to see a lot of them. But then again, I mean, I'm sure at one point, when you talked about snowboarding and skateboarding, like I feel like similar crowds, similar people, just different seasons, and I'm sure there's plenty of crossover there. So who knows?
Sure, and I think it's in that analogy. I think it's more like snowboarding and skiing. It's like you guys both go down the mountain on snow. You know, we both throw plastic around. Like, what's the difference? But you would never talk to a snowboarder and be like, "Oh, are you good at skiing?" They'd be like, "Oh, I use one board. Thank you. That's enough."
So what are your suggestions for? And we'll be selfish here. What are your suggestions for live? What are some of the things that you could see? Barring of course millions of dollars. What could you see? Where could you see improvements? When are you yelling at your screen saying, "Why aren't you guys doing this?" What are those types of things?
Sure, we've seen a lot of progress in this area, but I think context. So it's still really hard for the average viewer to understand when people are throwing, what that means. When looking at hole construction and course construction, how that can be accessible from a viewer standpoint. Camera quality and video quality is obviously skyrocketed, and as it continues to do so, I think that's going to be helpful. I think that along with following the lead card, having one or two stationary cameras on the course to show each group that plays a single hole. So you can see, oh, hey, here's the top group. They all put it within the circle. Here's the group five cards back, and they're kind of struggling. They're all professionals, but you can see now really how good these top guys are and why they're at the top, as well as retain some of your context as a viewer and know, oh, that shot was better than that shot because I'm familiar with this hole, and have that kind of condensed in a 1 round format so people can stay up on that.
That's why we had Dana on the lead card for at the Pro Tour, so we could see what the average pro did when he just constantly missed.
Yeah.
Yep, I love that.
Like, Dana, you are you're really here for a different purpose.
Your examples, for example's sake.
Content. What do you like and dislike about content that's out there? And as you said, you watch commentary. You have Joe Mez. You have us, and I don't mean like pick on any one production crew by any means, but what are some of the things that you do like about the content that's out there or working to improve?
Of course. Well, as a fan who understands the game, for me, the most exciting stuff to watch is the post-produced coverage where I know what's at stake already and I'm familiar with the courses. From that standpoint, just watching great action with good commentary and start to finish takes me an hour to watch the final round. That's the bread and butter right now. But the things that I find the most interesting, and I think that as an average consumer might find interesting, is some of the behind the scenes, the getting to know you as the players. Nico has this reputation for being a hothead on the course, and certainly a few years ago had thrown huge temper tantrums. But when I was in St. Louis as just some guy whose van kept breaking down, he helped me out. He brought me around. I stayed with him and Dave McCormick for a week, and we went to a gym and we shot hoops, and he brought me to Panera. I remember that because it was the first time I'd gone to a Panera, and he's a super genuine, nice guy. And I think that, unless you know him, you don't know that. And you just assume that he's some a-hole who's been good at throwing Frisbees. So I think more kind of character study and storylines of disc golfers and profiling the athletes is going to be more accessible and entertaining for the average consumer. It all comes down to story. We're people who enjoy books and movies and literature because there's that shared human experience, and we can find ways to relate to these people. We obviously can't relate to how good they are at disc golf because there's only a few of them who can do it, but we can absolutely relate to them as a person. The struggles, the effort they're going through, what's at stake for them personally. Why is Paul driven to be the best in the world? Why was getting health insurance as a part of his contract so important to him? So what's going on in these people's lives that is really driving them and keeping them centered and focused on this game so much?
Well, and I think that we are seeing there's definitely the demand out there. It's just a matter of finding a way to make sure that content gets produced and delivered. And I know that's something that, in a sense, that's exactly what Steve's vision is when it comes to the Pro Tour. Just in a generic sense, that he wants to see regular disc golf on screen. You think about whether it's a national tour or some of our big majors, they're scattered throughout the year. There's one here, and then it might be 2 months before you have another one, or it might be 3 weeks, or it could be all these random time frames. And I think one of the visions, or one of the main components for Steve and the Disc Golf Pro Tour specifically, is regularity. You're going to see it. It's going to be, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever, he ultimately decides, but it's going to be very consistent, and it's going to be every other week. And he learned every other week because he polled the players, and they realized that every week would be too demanding and too much to put on them. So this every other week concept, and even in the sense that, okay, well, there's kind of the front leg of 5 tournaments that take place over 10 weeks. There's going to be a break because people need to or want to travel internationally for some big summertime events. And then we're going to have a very consistent schedule for the remaining 5 weeks. And I love that was all part of the vision, because he wants that consistency. He wants people to know, hey, oh yeah, it's every other week I can tune in and we're going to get live disc golf. We're going to get post-produced disc golf. There's going to be stats. There's going to be scores. That all feeds into, hey, this is how people are going to find a player to root for. oh yeah, I just saw him 2 weeks ago. I saw him 4 weeks ago. And try and bring in a little bit more of that connection to the players. And I think that's part of it. But like you said, the actual pieces put together to highlight these players, to talk about the players. And we touched on one or two of those. We can do better next year for sure, where we kind of got a little in depth with Eagle McMahon, for instance. I
Yep.
think you're going to see a lot more of those produced. So again, you have that emotional, direct connection with some of these players. And you may find out you love them, or you may like, he was an a-hole in that piece. I don't like him. Whatever the case may be, we want people to make these
Personalities.
personal connections
It's all
and
about-
ties.
Yeah, we need more
For sure.
personalities in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I'm gonna do my bills probably after the show. I'll record that. I'll put that out on a YouTube channel and say professional disc golfer grinding. Right? You guys can
Yep.
see how much credit card debt I have, and everyone will go, "That's the one. I get it. He gets it. He's just a real guy paying bills."
He's got the skills to pay all those bills. What's the big picture for you in your professional career? I know we've talked about whether you're going to be playing again and your family and whatnot, but in your professional career, where do you see yourself? Is there a way you think you could ever transition out of it back into the way of golf, or are you going to be at the bank forever?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I just joined Sound Credit Union. I'm in the training department, and starting fresh with a new company is always a challenge. But I was able to get in at a place. If you're at all familiar with the banking hierarchy of things, training department tends to be a little outside of that flow. I started as a teller, then a banker, then I was a manager, then I was a project manager. So I was building up my kind of assets and worth within credit union in Oregon. Until we had to make a change, working way too much, not being able to be there for my family. So I made this change. Now we're up in Washington. I'm kind of starting fresh with this new company, but kind of carried forward all my skills and experience. So I would love to get to the point in the credit union world where I'm influencing organizations. I'm really making an impact on the community, hopefully shaping employees and their lives and their directions for the better. I think that's career-wise where I want to be. It's definitely not as fun as disc golf, but it's incredibly rewarding, and it's something that I'm good at and I enjoy doing. So, and it also provides for my family, which is ultimately the most important piece of it all. So, I think I'll be in the credit union world hopefully for the rest of it. But if I can find time to take a sabbatical or build into my schedule the flexibility to take those week-long chunks off for the NTs, then that would be great.
All right. It sounds you sound all too, as the board is saying, you sound all too intelligent and put together to be involved with disc golf.
You got to blame Nate for that, man. We actually had that conversation coming down for the ORDGC, me and Chandler, and we're just texting Colin and Nate, and there's not a lot of, I don't want to say educated because there's tons of people with educations out there, but disc golf has just this terrible rap of being this real slang heavy, counterculture. And I don't want to say it's not deserved, but that element is still very present in our game.
Mhm.
So you got guys like Nate and I who don't smoke, don't drink. Well, I drink. I work at a hard cider company, but are very kind of straight ahead, like to be articulate, like to be thoughtful, do a lot of analysis. There's just not a lot of our personalities in disc golf. So I don't chalk it up to those guys for getting me involved.
Yeah, I'm guessing Nate probably looked at you or called you one day and said, "Hey, are you the smartest guy in disc golf, or am I?" And then you guys probably had a conversation from there.
Nate, I don't think he would ask that question. I think if somebody asked him, he's the smartest one in disc golf. I'm just this goofy guy. Well, here you go. Perfect example. Our double's name was Pinky in the Brain.
Okay.
Guess who was Pinky?
That's you.
No.
Yeah, there was some talk on the board about who is Dion the smartest guy in disc golf, and someone brings up Calvin. Calvin's an engineer and he's super crazy intelligent, but there's a difference between being really, really, really book smart and being smart and being articulate and being able to communicate it. And we don't have a lot of the second. We've got, like I said, we've seen a lot of smart people in disc golf, but
Yep.
there's something to be said about the latter.
So one of the gentlemen that's out on the board, Danny Lindell, who's out there crushing it in the instructional video and helping and assisting players. I think usually newer players, maybe not. Maybe anyone and everyone can certainly learn from him. Do you see yourself, especially with your professional background now and the skills that you've acquired and learned, do you see yourself possibly getting into that kind of a role where maybe you could be a little bit more demonstrations and instructional video? Would you like to get into a role like that?
Absolutely. I have a huge desire to produce content for disc golf. For me, it just comes down to time and means. I don't have the time, and I don't have that great of editing software or camera film equipment. So I'd love to be able to produce content, to be in content. It just comes down to getting hooked up with the right people to be able to provide that. But product reviews, course reviews, instructional tips, all of that stuff is just stuck in my brain trying to get out. So if I could ever connect with somebody who has those abilities to produce, I would absolutely love to be in that type of role.
How much are you going to practice golf?
Practice?
Yeah.
You're talking about practice?
Yeah.
Oh man.
That P word.
Practice for me is I don't play casually, I'll put it that way. When I do get time to go to the course, I might have an hour or 2 hour window. There's always a purpose to what I'm doing. I might just play holes and might only throw a few shots per every hole, but I'm going to be focused on a specific skill. Primarily for me, it's backhand. I've always had a good forehand, and that was kind of the bread and butter for a long time. It's very accurate, very versatile, but it's kind of gaining that comfort and executing the backhand consistently. So I'm usually throwing backhands in the off season, putting occasionally, but I don't get a lot of practice time, so I just use the playing time that I get to improve on one aspect.
Yeah, when it reached 50-some degrees, I actually, for a fleeting moment today, thought, wow, I could go play a round of disc golf today. It's going to be the nicest final round of the, it would be, I think I've played less than 5 or 8 rounds of disc golf this entire year, and in any capacity, and I thought, wow, what would that be like for me to actually go out to a course here on this gorgeous day, or at least mild day in late November. And I ended up not even going, so I guess that's how much I put into it. But speaking of forehands, there's always this criticism or this conversation, and I don't need to beat that conversation to death, but what do you think about, as we, on the women's side, when we see Sarah Hokum, who's a world champion from 2012, and obviously one of the top 3 or 4 women week in and week out, but she is like 99% forehand. What do you think that does for her game? And I know she's working on backhand. She talks about practicing it, but if she can, she will go an entire weekend without throwing a single backhand drive. You being someone that's obviously versed in forehands, what do you think of that?
Yeah, and I watched the show that she was on, and I loved her comment about responding to people who say, "Oh, you're going to throw out your arm, and you're going to, it's not sustainable." And she's like, "Well, I'm on year 10, so we're doing good." But she has obviously found success, and that's where her comfort lies. And the only thing holding her back from being a better backhander is the mental side. Because physically, she's a gifted athlete, and there's no reason she couldn't throw backhands whenever and wherever she wanted to. So I made a conscious decision. I actually remember the exact tournament. It's 2007 Eugene Celebration, where I had put a pair of Champion Cobras in my bag, and on hole 7, damn it, I was going to throw a backhand. And I did, and one round it worked, and one round it hit a tree. And I just remember from that moment going like, okay, you did it. That wasn't so bad. Like, you threw a backhand. Awesome. And so I can very much see that same hesitance in her game. She's reluctant to do it because she knows that the potential for not throwing it the best possible way is there, and she knows that if she throws a forehand, she's more than likely going to execute it and be successful. So I just think over time she'll probably mature to that point, and if she doesn't, she might not need to, because she can be one of the top disc golfers in the world and not have to throw a backhand. If you say 3 years from now there are 10 more people as good as Paige, then Sarah will guaranteed be throwing backhands, because she'll be forced to be throwing backhands in order to compete with that type of a group.
Well, and then speaking of the women's side, it's I feel sometimes like it almost mirrors the men's side. We have, for at least a brief moment in time there, we had, Ricky and Paul, of course, that seemed to be at a whole nother level. And then for a little while there, we had Paige and Katrina on another level.
Yeah.
It was Paige and Katrina, then the rest of the field. And I think that's been kind of interesting to see. And we'll see if they can maintain that, or if other players are either going to catch them or if they're going to fall off, or whatever the case might be. But seeing that unfold, some of those storylines, and then seeing some of our best players, the players that you grew up with playing and learning from, as they now shift into things like the Masters divisions. And I think there's a lot of storylines that are going to continue to unfold. So it's great to talk to someone like yourself who's got that history, because we've made the joke multiple times. There are people listening right now that have never heard of or seen Ken Climo, which is, of course, crazy to the three of us, but that's the reality, right? I mean, some people have no idea. They could not pick out Ken Climo out of a lineup of 10 people, and that, to me, is a little bit crazy, but I guess that's just us getting old.
Well, I blame Jomez for that, because he never got on any post-produced coverage.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything we're gonna lose as we transition? Are people, as a gentleman, the same gentleman I saw at the park this weekend when I was talking about the footage, said, "Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining, but 20 years ago, I couldn't go to YouTube and learn how to putt better. I couldn't drive better. There wasn't a forehand. You ran into the local guy at the park, Tom Jenkins or John Turlap or whomever in your neighborhood. You hopefully ran into the guy that was nice enough that showed you a few things. You didn't get to run to YouTube and learn the entire sport and have access to all the best players. Yeah, by doing some binge watching. Is it getting too easy for our up and coming entrance into the sport?
I wouldn't say that. In fair warning, I'm seeing my battery on my PC is low, so
Okay, no
if
worries.
I just disappear, I might call you back on the phone. But I would say our sport is already easy to get good at. If you hear the legend of Bradley Williams, they bet him he couldn't throw a disc over 400 feet his first time throwing it. So he saw his buddy throw it, and he grabbed it and threw it over 400 feet. So, as a first-time thrower, and obviously, I mean, he's one of the best in the world, so that's, maybe not a coincidence, but as just a generally athletic person, you can be good at disc golf right away. It's not that complex on the surface. I think I taught my sister, who was a college volleyball player. I think she threw a 167 gram beast over 200 feet, after 10 throws, with somebody just kind of coaching her. Obviously, I probably gave good advice, but her being reasonably athletic and having that body awareness could pick up on that and know what to do right away. So our sport is already easy to get good at, and I actually think that is one of its main appeals. And if, people are picking it up and getting good at it right away, I think that's all the better. So I don't have anything negative or I don't think there's any unintended consequences for having as much content and access to it. I think that people who grew up without it are only going to look back and go, back in my day, I only had a 167 gram condor, and so I mean, you're going to have people like that, but they're old. Who cares about them?
Good point.
Every sport has a lost history, and we're going to have it as well.
Well, we are,
Yep.
and now that video is just finally getting here, and that we're, things are happening the way they are, and there's still always going to be events taking place that aren't covered, and there's going to be all these stories and all these people that will have never been documented for all the great things that took place. But
Sure, and disc golf is still so regional. I mean, if you go to any different parts of the country from where you started playing, there's all these different customs, all this different terminology, different scorekeeping, habits. So it's still not cohesive in the just because we see one sport, week after week on YouTube doesn't mean it matches up with, anything that the casual golfer is experiencing or is exposed to in their area. So maybe with some national coverage that we have with the content you guys are producing, we might see some consistency formed out there amongst casual golfers. But every club is still different, runs it differently, has different local customs and practices. So it's still all very grassroots, anyways.
It is, and it's funny to even hear things like the terminology monthlies. Like that's not a phrase that's used in Wisconsin at all. I would say a lot of the Midwest does not use that phrase. But when you interact with some other clubs and people from around the country, monthlies is something that's thrown out there all the time, and that's just one of 100 examples.
So what do you guys call it when you're at a doubles event, maybe like a local league or weekly, and there's an odd number of players, so one person gets to play by themselves? What do you call that?
Cali.
What do they call it in California?
The loner? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't either. I've always been wondering. I'm only one state away. I don't know why I don't just ask them. But there's all these terminology and where it all comes from and why it is that. Who knows? But I'm kind of fascinated by that aspect of it as well.
Well, and I remember very early on when you talked about, which sometimes referred to now as pro par, meaning just par 3 for everything, or sometimes that's Ironman par. Exactly. That's, I think, becoming, as we're seeing more par 4s and 5s develop. I think I've heard whether it's
that terminology is going away.
No, I think Ironman is still
is
there, but pro par I think is going away because it was pro par versus rec par versus family par. But when you hear a Barsby or a Macbeth say Ironman, or someone reference an Ironman, I'm like, okay, that I can put that connection together. But then I think back to I think at one point it was also referred to when you called everything a 3. I think in Wisconsin, at least, we used to refer to that as Cali scoring too, or California scoring, and that just meant everything's a 3. Like that's what that meant. And now
that probably stemmed from De La and I-5 and the fact that they call it a par 3. It's like, no, it's not. But okay, guys.
Yeah,
whatever.
Sure, whatever you want to say, exactly. So, and of course, California, terminology and a lot of those origins with adding everything taking place out there. Probably help make that shift east. Yeah, westward.
Yeah, Ironman's probably not going away anytime soon because that's just how all of us keep track. We hate doing math, so we just go 54. We're familiar with that. Everything else above, we'll have to do addition. That's easier than subtraction. And yep.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense.
We're gonna have to have like a regular Dion call-in segment.
I don't know about that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Once a year.
Yeah.
The closer he gets to Masters,
we'll let him call in every time he plays a tournament. Yeah, every time you play a tournament, that earns you one additional spot. No, in all seriousness, it obviously was overdue to have you. We really do appreciate having you, and we look forward to having you more in the future. Maybe dare I even utter the term structure? Maybe we'll come up with some kind of structured segment.
Let's not ruin the show by getting structure to it.
But if there's something that you whether it's a some kind of a reoccurring topic or maybe it's just topics with Dion or whatever, let's continue to talk about that. We'll talk about that offline among the three of us, and I think we'd love to have you back and have you more involved moving forward for sure.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. You definitely had no incentive to put me on. Nobody, I think, in the greater disc golf world besides Cool One really even cared about me. So
is that your wife? Is Cool One your wife just logging in saying, "Oh man, he's so awesome"?
My wife's not that kind. So no, I'm just kidding. She does not think that. Oh, there it is.
All right. Oh, we're gonna lose you. That's all right. Yep. Yeah, well, he warned us, so
he did.
Fair
he
enough.
Did warn us.
Well, Ryan says it. Prime time with Dion. I don't know. That might be the segment. Prime time with Dion.
That would be a great segment.
Sounds very fitting and appropriate. So,
and obviously, I'm gonna get way ahead of myself here, but
yeah, you are.
I could see a great catch up with Dion. Have him you set him up with like a camera or something along those lines. have him record something at night for Pro Tour segments. Like, oh, first round we saw this. Even if it's like a little 2-minute clip that he could do, or and then it could be played. You know, you could have 3 or 4 of them to play the next day during the broadcast. Or if we ever are able to do like an in the booth type broadcast, he would be very good in a booth.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's definitely. It was great. He's obviously very well received. There was no question about, we knew Dion was a smart fella, but it was great to have him here on the show.
He's calling back. Should I answer?
No, totally hang up on him. No, you can if you want, but we were just gonna let him go. So
all right, we'll just let him go.
Dion, we're good. We just officially. No. But yeah, we'll definitely be talking more, and we definitely love to have you on and do some things here in the future. So. All right. Yes, he does have some great ideas on content for sure. How do these cats type without looking like they're typing on the TV? That's a good question. Are you talking about on like the television broadcast, or are you talking about us? I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Cats type.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if he's talking about us because you can't see my arms, and I've got a noise gate, so you can't. I put the noise gate on, so it eliminates any volume under a certain amount, so hopefully you don't hear click, click, clicking.
Click, 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 click. Yes, Alan, we agreed. Dion was, in fact, very fun. He is knowledgeable and articulate in an entertaining segment. So, no, Coolin says, I'm still watching it. PC died? This is surreal. Yeah, his PC was going to run out of battery, so. All right, let's do a drawing, actually.
Oh, God, yeah, that's right,
we totally forgot about the Patreon drawing, so I'll give you a second to go ahead and pull that up. Again, tonight's choices is I'd like to thank and once again recognize Innova. I've worked with a number of manufacturers on any given event or weekend, and Innova was so graciously partnered up and the presenting sponsor this weekend here for the Cold Turkey 12, and here's just the genius. That's Matt the Stat Parker. I had the Cold Turkey logo, and he had then come up with the idea, which I'm sure you can't see. Doesn't work anywhere. Anyway, it says Cold Turkey, but then with the Y at the end, we kind of made a little slash and then turned it into an X with a II to make it for the 12. It was a clever move. Way beyond that just blew my mind when he suggested it. So thank you, Matt the Stat Parker, for the suggestion. So what I'm going to have for you tonight as our giveaway, hopefully you get back to us right away so I can get these mailed out. I mailed out a few things and to get caught up from the last couple of weeks, and then just today I got a couple of addresses, and I had to collect the harps here from Johnny that were given away last week. So those are both going out in the mail tomorrow. The label's even printed, which is honestly my toughest part, is sitting down and hooking up the printer to get the label going. So the labels are already printed. They just got to get put in the boxes after I grab them from Johnny at his house tonight. I've got an I Died Champion Mamba. The numbers are 11, 6, -5, and 1. So an I Died Champion Mamba with the Cold Turkey stamp, which I put up there correctly. Or you could win this TFR, which means Tournament Fundraiser, Shimmer Star Thunderbird with numbers 9502. So you will have your choice. Whoever is the winner, you will have your choice of one of these 2 discs, valued at $29.99. Maybe not. More like $17.99 or so. How are we doing over there, Johnny?
Good, I'm ready.
Do I have any shimmer turns with that stamp? I do not. I did not get any turns with that stamp. I have very few other discs. Flat KC Pro Rocks I got. Flat top ones. Couple Glow Strikes. CFR Strikes I think I might still have. The AVR 3s. Glow Champion AVR 3s. I've got some Glow Champion Rock 3s. I've got a few leftovers from the event, just a handful. So if you're interested in picking any up, you can reach out to me directly, and I'd be glad to help you out.
All right, we have 159 patrons. We're down 1 from last week. No big deal.
Big deal to me.
Off-season stuff. I can't
So
wait.
they don't want to support us in the offseason?
I guess not. I was thinking at the end of the year,
Mhm.
I want to put together a nice little statistic thing about, what we've kind of taken in, the number of patrons, what we've given out, all that other good stuff for everyone.
Value in terms of stuff given out has
Yeah.
been ridiculous. Yeah, we've got. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not talking about our crappy content. You and me.
no, the content is worthless or priceless.
Priceless. That's it.
That's it.
But no, just the absurd amount of stuff that we've given away, in terms of discs or shirts or other things that have come and gone, and some partners that we've teamed up with here and given away some stuff as well. So, yeah, by all means, I'd love to see all those statistics and
You just don't
information.
You just don't want to compile them.
No, I don't got time for that.
All right, so we have 159. I'm going to put this up on the screen so everyone can see. Ooh.
Plug for something. Oh,
Well,
I'll throw this up. Oh, you're ready. Okay.
Yeah, well, let
Then
me
I'll
generate
make my
the number
plugs.
here real quick.
All right, generating the number 102.
102. So now I go to my list of people.
I don't like our after show font.
Can't
Can't you get our other font, Orbitron?
I tried. It threw up an error at me when I tried this morning or this afternoon when I got back from work. I wanted the Orbitron font, and it wouldn't let me do it. It kept giving me an error, so I need to find out why that error is there. It might need to be some sort of reinstall with the font or the actual vMix application. Or I might just have to contact them. Maybe there's a bug in the new update. The whatever.
Say, you are
Lynn Henriksen.
Lynn Henriksen.
Lynn Henriksen. She is our winner of our wonderful.
Lynn could be a man.
It could be. You're right. Yeah, because it's Henriksen. So Lynn could be a man. You're right. I just made the assumption.
Only because Lynn, I feel like, is right around that same Terry name. Maybe. No, maybe not. I mean, Lynn generally, I think, leans a little bit more women. But who knows? A funny thing. So wherever I got one of those quick made pizzas this weekend was Mod Pizza. Those people that make the pizzas in 5 minutes. They asked for my name. I said Terry. And she said, the female person, employee, said, is that with an I or a Y? And I'm sorry, I've gone on this rant, maybe not here, but I doubt you know a Terry in your life that spells it with an I. If you are a female, there are 20 different ways to spell Terry. There really are. If you are male,
Terry.
There's, I think, really genuinely, truly expected, there is one way. And that is Terry. Okay? So she did not bat an eye when I said, oh, it's actually I. It's Terrii. And I held a straight face, and she wrote it down that way. For whatever reason, that amused me. So, anyway.
Lynn is a female. Verified on Facebook.
Wow, you didn't need to get all personal.
Just saying.
All right. So, Lynn, as Johnny will be messaging you right now, you will have your choice of, again, a 175 I-Died Champion Mamba, nice and understable, and more driver type, and then your star or a Shimmer Star Thunderbird fairway driver type, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, is that Kevin McCoy? K-Max is Terrea. That would be one spelling as well.
Need an apostrophe in there.
Something like that.
Just TER''E.
I think of so many different female versions of how to spell Terry, including even with a Y. So I'm good with all that. If you were confused or unsure on with a female spelling Terry, I get it. But there is one way to spell Terry for a man. Anyway, the struggles are real. I think that's still said these days. Stephen Moore says, I feel your pain. Nobody pronounces my name as Stephen. I blame Steph Curry for everyone saying my name wrong, and totally understandable.
Well,
but in certain, I'm guessing, I think in certain cultures,
Stefan.
Yeah,
I grew up in junior high. There was a Stefan.
Yeah. That
it was the first person I knew I knew Steven with a V, but PH is always Stefan because that's who I knew.
Oh.
So
moving forward, that's what you know.
So I still have a hard time looking when I look at that thing. Steven? No, it's Stefan. But I understand. I feel your pain. I have a hard time when people put an H in my name.
But that's so much more common. That I was gonna say, like, and John, John and Jon. I think, well, obviously HN is far more common.
Yeah,
far more common. But that's a legitimate, like, questionable one. I question everyone's John because I'm used to, if I have to spell your name or reference you, so I may question it. But again, there's one spelling for the male version of Terry. Not that tough. Not that tough, people. Stefan Urkel is the man. Stefan Urkel. Alan says, my first name is misspelled all the time. My last name is usually mispronounced. Yeah, I could see your, like, Alan, of course I could understand that being misspelled. I could see ALAN or AL or
no,
ALEN with just one L, which is probably odd as well. But that, again, that's so normal. Just like John and John. But all right, I'm going to move on off that. So here is a couple of quick plugs. I got to get them all in. Nobody shamelessly plugs themselves like I do. No, but heading to the South Florida Open, if you want to support and or have any representation in that video blog coverage, reach out to me. Maybe it's your club, maybe it's your event, or something that's taking place. Maybe you have a product. Whatever the case might be, reach out to me, as I'll be doing, I think, 4 full rounds of coverage at the South Florida Open A-Tier, taking place December 14th through the 17th. Reach out. So let me know if you're interested in supporting in any possible way. I am going to work on some support packages for the video blog coverage that I'm going to be doing. And then also, and this could be generically said of Smashbox and or of the Disc Golf Guy. I don't know if I've totally made this public. I plan to scratch entirely, completely scratch entirely my Disc Golf Guy Patreon setup right now. Not that I'm not going to get rid of Patreon, but I want to start from scratch, completely wipe it out, give you very practical, realistic, updated is the best word, updated milestones and achievements and whatever they're called, benchmarks, whatever. I forget all the
goals,
all those things. I want to update all of that. So what I'm asking for is I'd like to hear what you'd really like. And please don't say, well, if you're getting $200 video blog, I think you should give out a car once a month and stuff like that. But on a very serious tone, I would like to know what you guys would like to see or what you think would be worthwhile. I think, the first guy to the Patreon game and also the first guy to kind of let it slide a little and not stay on top of it. So I apologize if you've been disappointed in that. I want to step up my Patreon blog channel, so to speak. Smashbox will continue to have our Patreon. Jomez, Central Coast, Disc Golf Pro Tour, all will continue. Everyone's going to continue to have them. I'm just ready to completely reshape and remodel mine.
You should.
It's outdated. And if you have something coming from me from there, then let's get it sent out to you. That's what I'd like to do. All right. Alan Risley. Seth says, Alan Risley. I think it's on like 3 courses too. Convince AJ to fly into Orlando. It's only taking place on 2 courses. The South Florida Open. I'm putting all this together. There was going to be 3 courses. One was damaged by some of the flood, hurricane things, the bad weather stuff. So it's going to be on just 2 courses. I know at least $3,000 is committed to being added to it. So really looking forward to it. I know there's spots available in most, if not all, of the divisions. So excuse me, go out to Disc Golf Scene and get registered. Selfishly, again, on my end, I'll say I'm thinking about running a tournament, and I even called Dana today, and I'm looking for feedback. For the last few years, I think maybe 4 out of the last 5 or 6 out of the last 7 or so, I've run Chaining in the New Year. At one point, it was kind of named Last Chance at Points or something of that nature, but basically find the last weekend of the year and then host a sanctioned event. I kind of wrote it off in thinking this year I wasn't going to do it, but now with the whole idea of a flex start or possible multiple flex starts or a flex start and a regular start, I'm thinking about doing something. So I'd be interested to hear people's input. One idea that was tossed out was host a flex start. This is a relatively short and relatively easy course in southeastern Wisconsin is what I'm referencing. Have a flex start event that you can start as early as 9. You could start anywhere between 9 and 11. It's going to take you roughly an hour and a half at most, maybe 2 hours to play the round. And then you do that. It has a low entry fee. Maybe it's $20 and you get a disc just for playing in it. And then have a structured official additional round at, say, 1:30. So you can have the flex start in the morning. You can choose to play in that or not. Or you could come out for the regular shotgun start at 1:30. And I'd be curious to know what people think of that. I'll wait on the board as everyone lights up with all their interesting feedback. And maybe generically, if you don't know what a flex start is, you can ask that. Or if you're not familiar with flex starts and you or you don't have them or what you do or don't like about them. But a lot of flex starts, that may have been a DD innovation many years ago. A flex start event is, by definition,
we've seen flex start leagues and stuff before, but
sure, exactly. And maybe DD was one of the first to bring it in terms of a sanctioned event. But as you see at like Glassblown Open, which I referenced earlier in the show, a flex start is great in that it's a predetermined time in which you must start the event for, but it doesn't have to be at a specific start time. So, like I just said, you could show up at 9 o'clock, or you could show up at 10:59 a.m., but you need to tee off by 11, for instance, and you could show up anywhere in that time frame. And as soon as there's 3 or 4 people that make up a group, you could then go out and play that round. Sometimes flex starts usually cover the whole day, though. So maybe I may just say I'm going to have a flex start. Starts at 10, goes till 3, and you can show up anywhere between 10 and 3, and then you can sign up and then play your 1 round of golf, and it's just 1 round and you're done. So
okay.
I'd be curious to know what people think of that. Flex starts have become very popular. They haven't been done a lot in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know how many are done in Illinois. But I'd be curious to know what people think of it.
No, but Bitcoin, I just logged in because someone said it's at 10,471.
So what's it, how much do you own of a Bitcoin?
I own one right here. You can see I own 1/4 of a Bitcoin. I can actually.
Yeah,
that would be. But
you're gonna log in and see.
That's my Bitcoin right there, and that's how much it's worth. And I paid. Oh, good. It's got that starred out on my bank. That's how much I paid. I paid $208 for it.
When did you buy it?
It says here. No, I'm sorry. That's my Ethereum. The Bitcoin was January 29th of like 2014. Yeah, January 29th of 2014.
Okay. So sell it.
Oh no. You are the perfect person to talk about this because you have hoarded so many discs.
Yes.
That have gone up in amazing value and crashed.
Correct.
That
I should have sold.
You should have sold. But at the time, what did you think? Well, I'll just hold on to them longer and they'll get more valuable. I don't know. I don't know when. Obviously, everyone wants to sell at the peak time, but with literally as much as it's gone up 70% in the last month.
Which right there, I'm no investor.
That's great, but in the last year, it's gone up 1,300%. Like, where does it stop? And
well, and that's my point. I'm no investor. I'm not going to claim to have those those dollars and pennies smarts. But this insane influx just in the last 30 days seems silly.
30 days compared, I mean, 30 days, it's gone up only 70%. In a year, it's gone up 1,300%. That's minimal compared to the quote unquote longer term. It's such a tough decision for me.
I know. I don't know what you're gonna do.
I really don't know.
Real quick, going back on the whole flex start concept, I want to make this low entry fee and low maintenance. I don't think I'd have any payouts or any prizes or any trophies or anything. You're essentially playing for a competitive round. You're going to get something in a player pack, like I said, a disc or something, and you're playing to get a rating and some more points, which some people definitely care about, in that they're trying to get into an Am Worlds or a Pro Worlds or whatever the case might be.
Sure.
I think those points are becoming more and more important. Maybe you need to break a tie. Maybe Paul Macbeth will show up because he needs a few more points.
That's not a bad idea.
To try and get past Wysocki, or Wysocki will show up to get past. Like, anything is possible here. But yeah, that's why it would be relatively low. It would be $15 or $20 or $25. You're going to get something that's probably worth about that as a player pack item, and then your points will be on the board on the PDGA reported by the end of the day, and you go and enjoy your New Year's Eve. So, all right, Stephen Moore says, never turn and trade into an investment or an investment into a trade. If you bought because you had a long view, hold. You had no long view.
No long
view. You
view.
had none.
I bought because it was interesting, it was curious, and I was speculative on it. I was like, let's see what's about, which is why I only bought a quarter of one, because at the time it was like $800 for one full coin. And I thought, well, I treated it like gambling. I $200, put it in, and said, pulled the slot. And right now I'm seeing cherry, and I think that third one is still spinning. I just don't know if it's going to be a 7 or a cherry. So, well, I'm going to hold on to it probably at least until next year. And I'll see how it goes. For tax purposes, so I don't get hit on whatever
gambling gains tax
that they have on it. But
that's going to get taxed? How are they going to know about it? Who knows about that?
Well, I'm not.
I know it's all tracked.
I'm sure it is, and it's yeah.
Isn't that kind of the point of those? Is that like
it's a decentralized currency, not an untrackable.
Exactly. That every single component, every single component of it, where it is, the interaction, the purchase, like all of that, like has, it's all tracked.
Yes, it's all part of the blockchain.
So
now, granted, there are ways to spin it and wash it, so to speak, so that you don't it's less trackable, but yeah, it's such a weird thing, and again, in 5 years we could be going like, oh, you idiot, or in 5 years I could be sitting there saying, I can't believe that I cashed out for $20K or $2K.
Well, that's what K-Max says, is sell at $20K. All right, cool one says, Smashbox, do you guys know Rock and Roll Hall of Famers? Cheap Trick? They're from Rockford, Illinois.
We do not know them. We know of them.
I've heard, yes,
yeah,
Cheap Trick, but that's as far as that goes. I remember when they were a penny, and I called them dumb and said they would never account to anything. So maybe my advice isn't great.
Well, a good friend of mine bought at $20 a coin, and he sold at $80 a coin. Thought, oh, I made 4 times my money.
I'm rich.
Yeah, it's like, that was pretty cool, but that was 4 years ago.
Should I go? The question is, should I go buy
now, right now? Invest in everything you have.
Okay, and buy as many coins as
yeah
I can afford. Okay. All right. So the only other hot topic. Well, I don't know if it's the only other hot topic. And a hot topic of the night. MVP is, of course, then stepping in to sponsor and support and be the title sponsor of the Vibram Open, which is no longer the Vibram Open. It's now the MVP Open at Maple Hill. couple things from that. First of all, some have said with Vibram, and I've seen this on the boards, Vibram seems to be restructuring kind of their team element to how they support players. And now, and of course I don't know any of the inner workings, but now they are not the title sponsor of this event. And MVP could have just said, hey, whatever Vibram's giving you, we'll give you double. And maybe that was it. I don't think that's how it happened. But so if Vibram's not the title sponsor of this event, which is by far and large the biggest event that they underwrite or assist, is a better way to put that.
Mm-hmm.
And their team seems to be kind of it seems like it's taken a step back, is I guess how I would say, or is this writing on the wall? Steve Dodge left and just the whole thing goes under?
I don't know. That's a great question. They're still producing discs, and I don't know. I'm not in their pocketbook. I don't know if it's the end, if it's the beginning of the end, if it's the beginning of the beginning.
So there's an interesting conversation there, and then a follow-up conversation that is, I would say, in a similar vein but different because it still relates to that event. The Sauce, as he goes by, I'll use him by name, Jamie Mosier, who has, I think he grew up even in Michigan. I know he definitely has roots there. Jamie Mosier had put out a post today that kind of got me a little worked up, fair or not, and it just said, so instead of building and or sponsoring a large-scale event locally in their home state, they buy out an event in New England. We have two major manufacturers here in Michigan. Each one should have their title event scheduled near one another, maybe a NT or a Disc Golf Pro Tour, bringing the majority of the tour into town for a minute. Each one would become awesome because they would be competing with each other to be the premier event. It's awesome to see MVP finally getting involved with events, but come on, let's start something and grow it local.
Here's why that's dumb. Because he said
it. Wow.
No, in seriousness, listen, you and I are old schoolers. Michigan is Discraft dominating. Not that MVP can't take that over, but the biggest event, well, I'll say now the two biggest events that Michigan has, the Cracked Plastic and the GLO, which used to be the DGLO, the Discraft Great Lakes Open. I don't know who's sponsoring it this year. I don't know if Discraft is in it or I wasn't going to jump to the conclusion because it's not the DGLO. Could they find another event and try to pump it up? Sure, they could. But it sounds like Jamie's saying, oh no, let's just make another event near the GLO and you put a bunch of money into it and hope it attracts a bunch of players. It doesn't just work like that. Now, MVP saw an opportunity or took the opportunity, or maybe didn't even
forced or gained or fell in their lap, however it happened.
They went with an established event, a great event, one of the best events of the year, and they're able to put their name on it. Good for them. There's nothing that you should say bad about that. Period. The only thing you should be saying is, wow, it's unfortunate that Vibram didn't want to do that. That's it. I give nothing but props to MVP. And if they don't want to, or they don't see an opportunity locally, so to speak, fine. Go somewhere else. Maybe they feel like, Discraft has this area locked up. There's not a lot going on in the original colonies in the Northeast. There's no manufacturer that's dominant there. Maybe we can be dominant there. Because in the Southeast, you've got Innova. The Southwest, you've kind of got Innova. Down in the South, you've got Prodigy. California's got Legacy. Like, there's just manufacturers everywhere. The fact that they're in the same state as Discraft, maybe they feel like they don't want to be second fiddle in Michigan, and they want to go to the Northeast. I don't know what the mentality
or
is.
maybe they have their foothold that they feel is solid enough where they are.
Yep.
Whatever the case might be, and I wholeheartedly admitted, I even when I saw the thread cross my wall, I wrote, and I think there was 50 some comments. It's now blossomed into a few hundred as
Jamie
of this
likes
moment.
to stir up shit.
I know he does.
It's all he likes to do.
I just wish he'd come with an ounce of I don't want to say non-selfishness. It's not about only your vision and your goals and what you want. And I feel like I do feel like it's selfish. I feel like
I think it's selfish, not necessarily for him particularly, but his area is what he wants to do. And I can't blame him for that. Saying, no, I'd love to see you guys push Michigan to be a better area. I get that part. I get it. Just the way he does it is horrible. Like, there are better ways to
word it.
To word that and go at it like that. And the way he went at it,
I think it's disrespectful.
It is to
the parties involved.
Mm-hmm.
And it frustrates me, and I say this all the time. It frustrates me because I have been a TD, which I'm very much for the most part removed from 20 events down to 2 or 3 in a year. But it's just that same old mentality of you know what you should do, and
I'm gonna get you a shirt.
That's what I need. Let's just throw a few daggers in this, in that maybe they don't want to have an event there and want to compete with the other 2 big events or other multiple events that are taking place. Because it's so funny. I feel like there's such a significant contradiction in the concept. He says, let's get an NT or a Pro Tour event, but let's grow it local.
Well, they have a Pro Tour event.
Well, exactly. But just even conceptually, support an event that's an NT or a Pro Tour event in your town. That's growing it local? Because who's going to come to town to play those? Everyone outside of your area. The Pro Tour travels around the country trying to attract players from all around to come to an area.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come in and they do a great job, and same with the national tour. But I don't know how that grows the local scene. If anything, it kind of exhausts the local scene. It challenges and stresses the local scene. I just do not understand.
And here's the other thing. MVP,
who supports a ton of events, by the way. They run their circuits.
Correct.
They support the Pro Tour. They support all these events.
I have a hard...
They're not doing enough for you? What do they owe you? They owe you nothing.
No. Well, I'm not even going there. I'm saying MVP has been doing a great job over the past few years. I have a hard time questioning a company that is doing a great job. If they were floundering, or if they had a bad reputation and you wanted to turn around, fine. But I just have a hard time second guessing a company that is doing very well for themselves. They seem to know what they're doing. I don't see the Mosier disc company anywhere,
or the Mosier TD establishment.
And I just think, yes, you can have suggestions and you can phrase them any way you want. I have a problem thinking that I know better than a company that's doing well. It would be as if, I'm not going to go there.
I think you should call Bitcoin and tell them how they need to handle their business.
No,
I mean, you know everything. You own.
I own 0.25.
You own 0.25 of a Bitcoin. Why don't you get on the Facebooks and tell them how to be handling all their business?
It's just
right.
Yeah.
Is that not a fair analogy?
Or maybe they see an opportunity in the Northeast where they're not very popular. I've seen on the board that people saying MVP is very popular in California. I see lots of people out there throwing MVP. Maybe they look at their books and they say, "Oh, we're not selling a lot in the Northeast. Let's go do something there." Or maybe they look at Michigan and go, "We're fine here." I don't know. I don't have the books in front of me, but to question their decisions is short-sighted with a successful company. That's all I can say.
I'm okay if you're disappointed by Jamie. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think there's a tactful way to word it to not then come across as somewhat of an entitled complainer. That's all. Call that advice. Call me a jerk. You do what you want. I don't care. It's
But
just
then he wouldn't be Jamie.
I know, and that's just it. It's like, it's not fair that it's almost not fair that I pick on him or that we pick on him.
That's like
But
asking,
I feel like he makes posts that just invite.
it's like asking Murder Mike not to make bad memes.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Or good, if depending on how you look at it. Quotes. It's in their nature, and that's what they do. More power to them.
Cool.
Or less power to them. I don't know.
Cool one says, F you on your question. Terry, why can't you invite Vibram to your podcast? Let's hear what they plan for their future. It'd be a great topic and scoop on Smashbox. I totally agree. I've got no reason not to.
They have there's a podcast. There's a Vibram Collectors podcast that for the first time had seen. They're on like episode 14. And I saw someone link to it yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And I looked at it for literally all of 2 seconds, and I went, I don't have time for this. He was just looking at discs, going over discs. Sure. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to sit.
Well, it's definitely geared toward, is it geared toward the rubber heads?
Yeah, and yes. And I think it's the team manager, because they have a big plan. Vibram has a big plan for 2018 that there's something about grip, which is like grassroots.
Correct. They restructured
regional,
their whole team.
Yeah.
Look.
Anyway, they're not going away. I don't think in their mind, I don't think this is the end. No.
And I wasn't implying they were.
No. I know you just throwing out the question, like what's their future look like? But they look like they're still going. They look like they're going to continue to try. What happens from a company-wise, I have no idea. But meh.
And let me be very clear as well, just so Cool One or anyone else has any confusion. We gain absolutely nothing by a company failing within disc golf whatsoever. I wish no ill will on a manufacturer to fail. I'm not implying or suggesting that Vibram is doing just that with their disc golf line. I think it's a valid question, though, to ask. What's their strategy? Are they restructuring? Is this a challenge? Is this a hurdle? Is this a way that if their restructure may lead to a demise, or this restructure may lead to an exponential spike in growth? I mean, there's a lot of different ways. I think the general perception out there, though, is that when you restructure the team and you're not supporting in the sense of like a standard team sponsorship, and I know of at least one very disgruntled team member, or not disgruntled, maybe that's not the right word. He just said, well, I'm no longer going to be sponsored by them and I'm moving on. I think some of these questions are then very valid, and I'm not trying to be accusatory or anything of that nature. I think those are just valid questions. Okay. Luke says, later Smashies, I have to get ready to go play some disc golf with Chris Finn and a bunch of other crazy Perth residents.
Well, lucky you, Luke, who it's the middle of the afternoon, and you're going to go play some golf with some wonderful people.
That sounds awesome.
I'm not bitter or jealous at all.
Cool One says, please shoot Vibram an email. Terry and JVD, it'd be a fascinating Smashcast. I'd be all about it. I'm not going to lie. Once Steve left, I no longer had a direct connection to Vibram. I think about, we know a dozen people at DD. We know every person at Legacy. We know, all these people at Innova, at Discraft. We know all these people, Prodigy. We know the direct connection and who to reach out to. And they all know they can reach out to us. We've just never had that personal one-on-one with anyone once Steve was not in that role. So if there's someone that wants to reach out and talk to us next week, let's flat out
do it.
And same with MVP or whomever else. And I know Steven says, you say we need more personality. Jamie has done a great job of being a very good player, but branding himself so much that his Facebook posts make it into the #1 disc golf show.
First of all, thanks for calling us the #1 disc golf show. I'm going to put that on like this big advertising, and I'm going to send it to Disc Golf Answer Man. But second of all, you're right. We do need more personality, and Jamie is a personality. And
that doesn't mean if he wants to put himself out there in
as the bad guy.
If he wants to put himself out there in an argumentative and or in a controversial sense, then we'll reply that way. Had he made a post that said, "Oh, it's too bad. I really wish something would have happened," I would have read right past it. It was just the way it was worded, which is the reason why I brought it up. And to be fair, Jamie is also synonymous with complaining. Yeah. I think, as you said, he likes to stir shit up.
Well, on and off Facebook, he likes to complain.
Fair enough. And if you want to talk with us, you're more than welcome to. We'd love to hear it if we're not hitting the nail on the head here. Nathan, getting back to business, says flex starts are fun. I like to spend time with my girlfriend on the weekend. It's quick, and time with your girlfriend is? No.
I was gonna make that joke.
And I actually played with my girlfriend in one. It made her like disc golf more. I totally agree. There again, due to the flexibility, your whole day is not shot. The day that I'm looking at doing it is Sunday the 31st. I'm assuming everyone pretty much is going to have off on Monday. But Sunday the 31st, there's going to be a Packer-Lions game. It may be irrelevant. It may be...
It's going to be irrelevant for the Packers.
Exactly. So it may or may not matter, but if there's a flex start involved, again, you can kind of make your day out however you like. So
I might actually play that.
Okay, there you go.
Where is it?
Kenosha.
I haven't played
Kenosha. Speaking of Kenosha, I think the Manitowoc Minute, Charlie, not Barons, maybe. Anyway, he's on tour. Do you know the Manitowoc Minute guy?
I've heard of it, but
it's funny.
Yeah,
I'll say that. That's thanks to Chad, our cameraman, who introduced me to him. He's gaining some serious steam in Wisconsin. All right. Cool One says, why not 2 flex rounds? Dana had a really good point when we were talking about this. He likes the idea of the shotgun round that start at 3 or at 1 or whatever, because then there's a finite point, and then everybody will be done at a certain time, and we're all going to get done in the daylight for sure. There's no question about it. And so you really can pick your poison. Do you want to play a morning round sometime in the morning on a flex? Or do you want to play a structured round, or do you want to play both? And I think that gives, and that also then, it kind of helps structure the flex start of the morning. It's just a matter of, is it worth having 2 options of golf rounds that day, or do I just say, it's 10 to 3, there's 1 round, you can only play in 1 round, just show up between 10 and 3. Dana was trying to think, for maybe more bang for your buck, some people might like to try and get 2 rounds in that day. I got to double check with the PDGA that's not possible. Some people might like to play back-to-back rounds and can do so. Exactly. I see. Terry, do it the Friday the 22nd. We could be partners in the Innova Elf Factory Friday Flex Start C tier. There is a twist. There's a twist. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know. It might be around on the 22nd. Where are we going to do it? Innova Elf Factory Flex Start. How about one longer round, like 24 holes? It's an 18-hole course, and it doesn't need to be more. Is all I would say to that. Let's chat. I don't have much else.
No, I know.
What do you got?
I was going to ask. Have you been watching anything? Have you?
Nope. In fact, there was something going on with our Amazon Fire Stick yesterday, and something wasn't connecting, and I looked at it for like 2 seconds, then I quit worrying about it. And then this morning, or this afternoon, when the kids got home from school, it was still disconnected because I never touched it all day because I don't care. And sure enough, the first thing they did was they got to their homework, which is great, as they should, which they usually do, but they got to their homework, some reading, some math, all that stuff. And at one point, a few minutes later, I looked over, and my 9- and 6-year-old got out an old game of Uno and started just playing Uno. And I was like, I don't think this would happen. Now, granted, they have YouTube and tablets and phones and other things they could have went and all got their content on. I know that. But I truly feel like the TV in the living room wasn't working, wasn't connected, and there was a deck of cards, and somehow one uttered to the other, and sure enough, they played Uno, and it melted my heart.
That's great. I played cribbage with Mason just the other day. He beat me.
Nice.
Actually. Yeah, I was all completely fair. Didn't help him out. He beat me by like 6 points. Little brat dropped a 16-point hand and a 12-point hand to start. And then after that, kind of just cruised. I couldn't quite catch him. But he's a little numbers freak, and I enjoy playing cribbage with him. But did I tell you how you'd like Mindhunter? Did we
No.
talk about this? It is on Netflix. I must have talked about it last week. Anyway, it's really good. It's about these guys that work in the FBI in the 70s and are coming up with like profiling serial killers.
Oh, maybe.
I think I did talk about it. But it's really good, and we're not binging it so much as watching it. It's really awkward. So we were up at Thanksgiving with my in-laws,
Mhm.
and it was like 9:30. They were in the other room. We were in the sunroom. My wife's like, "Hey, do you want to watch Netflix?" I had downloaded them in prep because there's no internet up there. So I pop it in there in the sunroom, and we turn it on, and it's graphic at times. It's about serial killers and what they do, and not always the prettiest thing. And so there's these FBI agents talking about what's going on, and my mother-in-law about 50 feet from there as the iPad's blaring out about the vile and horrible things that these serial, and she turns around, she's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Oh, Mindhunter?" She's like, "It sounds interesting." And all I kept thinking was, I don't want to watch this with you. Like, I don't want to be put in that position. So instead, we go the next night, we decide we're just going to watch it in bed. Got the iPad, sit in bed. That's awkward too. Like, just you're watching this TV show about these serial killers that do horrific things to these people, these mostly women, and I'm sitting in bed next to my wife, and you're like, this is awkward. Like, this is really weird. I don't know. I slept fine. She said she had some weird dreams. I slept great, but anyway, go check out Mindhunter. It's very good. My wife went to the movie. She saw Wonder today about a disfigured boy and struggles and this and that, and she said it was very good. She also listened to the audiobook.
I may see Miles. Miles talking.
Parkhill?
Yep, Miles Parkhill from Paragon. He's talking about coming up to Wisconsin.
Why? Why would you do that? Why would he?
Appleton, specifically. He heard of a printing company that may be relocating or going out of business and selling some things.
Oh, very cool.
Any guess who that might be?
A printing company. The only thing, Appleton has a ton of paper companies, but printing company?
Yeah, printing like screen printing, what he does.
Not E&J?
No.
Is that what it was called, right?
Yeah, that was not it. The little local sports store.
Because I know
they think much bigger than them.
Appleton Paper, but that's a paper company.
Yeah.
Or Repap, Midtech.
Oh. One that is synonymous with.
This is tough.
It's really not, because you're gonna go, oh duh.
No clue.
They make backpacks?
Oh, JanSport.
Yeah.
Wow. JanSport. Yeah, JanSport is. I'd heard bad things about that. The bankruptcy and stuff like that. So that's pretty amazing.
Oh, Johnny. Oh, no, Miles, have you corrected? He says it's not what you think. Because that was my guess, and he didn't know who he was talking about as we were trying to nail this down. And I said JanSport, and then he calls me a few days later and says, yeah, it's JanSport, I think. But okay, but now you're telling me that's not the case? Is that what you're saying, Miles? He's on the board. VF? The VFW? I don't know what you're talking about. So maybe it is not JanSport.
Unless they rebranded.
Which is possible, because look at the location. Is that out in that general area? Yeah, CB. Yeah, that's kind of out in that area anyway, isn't it? Another school specialty.
Yeah,
yeah, that's out in that area. I think.
I think
that's funny, because Johnny's gonna do the Googles.
Yeah, JanSport rebranded to Vinnie Dom. That's VD, not VF. But is that what you meant?
If that's what you meant, then we're still on the right track.
But
VF Imageware. VF owns, and then Cool One chimes in with saying VF owns North Face, Wrangler, etc. Then he said they might have printed Jansport.
Well, that could be. They're located relatively close to each other.
VF Imageware?
That's not what I know then.
That's not what I know then either.
I'm glad that I wasn't completely...
Interesting.
Well, I hope you enjoy Appleton, Miles. We grew up there.
I may join him. That's the fun part.
Just to go up there?
He might need some help. And if there's one thing I am, it's helpful. Yeah. And it'll be a good time to maybe catch up with our good friend Mike Schwieger and a few other Appleton people. In fact, depending on the time frame, I may actually come to you live from our good friend Michael Schwieger's house on Tuesday night, depending on what Miles' needs are. So anyway, that's all super quiet, random stuff. VF was purchased by Fanatics last year, which included Majestic, Harley, Vans, and a lot of other huge retail stuff. Fanatics made the decision to close down the Appleton plant for some crazy reason. Yeah, might hire some help. Maybe shoot a time lapse. Yeah, I can handle that. I got an Osmo. Here's a good fair question to throw out there, whether it's on the board or to you, Johnny. Any outstanding? I won't go Black Friday deals, but any outstanding Cyber Monday things that jumped out that seemed crazy or wild, or I sent to Steve Dodge like the DJI Osmo that I have, which was $299. It was $100 off, which I think is substantial. It was $199. I sent him that. I should have sent that to you as well, Seth. But
I honestly didn't look. No, there was nothing. None of that. I'm not in need of anything particular, so I had no real reason to look. So I didn't get any. Plus, being up in Door County, well, Cyber Monday, obviously, I could have looked on Monday. I didn't look at any Black Friday stuff. I didn't. From Thanksgiving until that Sunday, I'm off the grid almost entirely.
Okay.
I have to go in specific parts of the house if I want to get internet. Which
a little more challenging.
I want to get them a DVR, like or their over-the-air stuff, because they would like to record things, but every one requires some sort of connection for a channel guide. So I don't know.
Kind of makes sense.
Correct. You can download the channel guide. I don't know if there is a good way around not having, because they have zero internet. They have a cell phone that my mother-in-law uses. My father-in-law, I think, maybe once used an iPad. He has never touched a real computer. It's not his thing. He's into,
clearly
he's into. I mean, he can strip down and redo a classic car. He's rebuilding some sort of pickup truck right now, but he has no use for the internet. He gets magazines for car stuff, but she likes to obviously be on Facebook and this and that. But I don't know if we'd get a channel guide, if it would be worth it for them. Anyway, so if you know anyone out there that has, I was looking at there's something called the Channel Master, the Channel Master DVR Plus, which is good for over-the-air recording. It doesn't require any sort of service fee, but I think it still even needs like an internet connection to get a guide. I don't know if you can record just based on hours, but it's going to be really tough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I need to do a little bit more digging into it.
Cool One asks, do you think Smashbox will ever add filmed content like Dion Driving Clinic, like Avery does for Spin TV, the game video?
In the game videos. It would be great. I would love to do something like that. We just don't really have the manpower.
The manpower and the means to assemble something of that nature. That really is what it comes down to. Because Johnny nor I are high-level editors.
No, we can,
for starters.
We scrape by. We know the basics, paint by number stuff. But when it comes to fancy graphics and things like that, it's not where we thrive. But I mean, it would be great. I would love something like that. I would love those things in the bag to be able to play during downtime for the live broadcast, even if it's like a 30 to 60-second, throwing tip with Dion
Yeah.
or Danny or anybody. I think those things would be pretty cool.
Lots of options. Matter of making them all happen. I'd like to know who else is going to be in Florida. I saw on the list, and when Dana was talking earlier about Chris Dickerson and the year that he's having, Chris Dickerson has signed up for it. I think Big Germ is signed up for it. Kobe Geis is signed up, and Zach Melton. So those are some of the bigger names that are signed up for that event. So we're hoping to see more players get signed up. All right, I think we can.
We can wrap it up. It's been almost 4 hours.
Kill it.
You and I have one or two things we need to accomplish after this.
Oh yeah, we do. And stuff. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you guys sticking with us here to the bitter end. It's been a long night. We, of course, want to thank Dion Arlyn, the Whip, for joining us here in the after show tonight. I think there's definitely some future communication that will go down, and we'll find ways to get him more involved with what we've got going on, whether it's live, recorded, weekly, or regular, whatever the case might be. We'll find some way to work a little bit more with Dion, and we really appreciate him being persistent in reaching out to us and having him force us to get him on the show. I think that's what he did. But thanks for joining us here again. That's been podcast number 171 after show for Johnny V and Terry Miller, the disc golf guy. We'll see you next time when you step inside the Smash Box.